Bound by duty, broken by desire. A steamy billionaire arranged marriage romance. Prologue. The proposition. Scarlet. The mahogany doors to my father's office had always felt imposing. Today they felt like the gates to hell. My heels clicked against the marble floor of Morrison Hotel's executive suite, each step echoing in the unusually quiet hallway. The receptionist had given me a look, pity mixed with something else. Fear, maybe. That should have been my first warning. I'd been summoned from our London property, pulled from a critical meeting with investors without explanation. Just a terse text from my father's assistant. Come to headquarters immediately. It's urgent. Richard Morrison didn't do urgent. He did calculated, methodical, and ice-cold. Urgent meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. I pushed open the door without knocking. I'd stopped asking permission to enter my own father's office years ago, around the time I'd realized he'd never see me as anything more than a disappointing substitute for the son he'd never had. Scarlet. His voice was clipped, controlled. He sat behind his massive desk, silver hair perfectly styled despite the fact that it was barely 9 in the morning. His face was drawn, though shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Sit down. I'd rather stand. I crossed my arms, defensive instinct kicking in. Whatever this was, I wanted to be able to run. Sit down. The command in his voice made my spine stiffen, but I obeyed, lowering myself into one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Only then did I notice the folder in front of him, thick with documents, and the tumbler of scotch despite the early hour. My father never drank before noon. The company is failing, he said without preamble. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Morrison Hotels is on the verge of bankruptcy. He took a long sip of his drink, and I watched his hand shake slightly. We have 3 months, maybe 4, before we have to start selling properties. 6 months before we lose everything. My mind raced. This was impossible. Our hotels were legendary. Luxury properties in every major city, a legacy built over 3 generations. How? The quarterly reports were creative fiction. He cut me off. I've been hemorrhaging money for 2 years. Bad investments, debts I couldn't cover, and then the lawsuits. He trailed off, looking older than I'd ever seen him. What lawsuits? My voice came out strangled. Sexual harassment. 3 former employees. They're asking for settlements I can't afford, and if it goes to trial, the publicity alone will destroy us. He met my eyes, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father look ashamed. I made mistakes, Scarlet. Costly ones. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I sat frozen, watching my entire world crumble. Morrison Hotels was everything. It was my mother's legacy, the one thing she'd built with her own hands before cancer took her when I was 16. And my father had destroyed it. There's one option. His voice pulled me back. One way to save the company. Hope flickered, dangerous and desperate. What? Dominic Ashford has made an offer. The name sent ice through my veins. Everyone knew Dominic Ashford. British billionaire, tech mogul, real estate tycoon. They called him the Titan of London, though the tabloids preferred the devil in Armani. He was ruthless, calculating, and notoriously cold. At 30, he'd built an empire that made seasoned businessmen nervous. What kind of offer? I asked, though something in my gut already knew the answer. He'll acquire 49% of Morrison Hotels. Enough to save us, enough to keep control in the family. He'll settle the lawsuits, cover our debts, and inject the capital we need to stay afloat. In exchange for what? The question hung in the air like poison. My father's jaw tightened. You. The room tilted. Excuse me. He wants a wife. Someone with the right pedigree, the right image. A merger of families, not just companies. He pushed the folder toward me. It's all outlined in the contract. I stared at the manila folder like it was a snake. You're selling me. I'm saving our family. By treating me like property. I shot to my feet, fury overriding shock. This is insane. This is medieval. This is reality. My father stood as well, his voice rising. You think I want this? You think I'm happy about this? But it's either this or we lose everything your mother built. Everything she died protecting. The mention of my mother was a low blow, and he knew it. You can't ask this of me. I'm not asking. His eyes hardened. Scarlett, I know we've had our differences. I know I haven't been the father you deserved. But I'm begging you now. Please. Do this for the family. Do this for your mother's legacy. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. And if I say no, then we're done. In 6 months, Morrison Hotels will be liquidated. Our family name will be worthless. And your mother's dream dies. The weight of it crushed down on my shoulders. This was impossible. This was a nightmare. But as I looked at my father's desperate face, I knew he wasn't bluffing. We were out of options. I want to meet him first, I heard myself say. He's waiting in the conference room. Course he was. This whole thing had been staged, choreographed. My father had known I'd agree before I'd even walked through the door. Because he knew exactly which buttons to push, which wounds to reopen. I turned toward the door, my legs feeling like lead. Scarlett. My father's voice stopped me. I looked back. Thank you. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The walk to the conference room felt like a death march. Through the glass walls I could see him. Tall, broad-shouldered, standing with his back to the door as he looked out over the London skyline. Dark hair, expensive suit that probably cost more than my car. Even from behind he radiated power. I pushed open the door and he turned. Sweet God. Dominic Ashford was beautiful in the way a storm was beautiful. Dangerous, captivating, impossible to look away from. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes the color of steel. Cold eyes. Eyes that looked at me like I was a balance sheet he was evaluating. Miss Morrison. His voice was deep, British accent crisp and proper. He didn't offer his hand. I'm Dominic Ashford. I know who you are. I forced myself to walk farther into the room, to meet those calculating eyes. Apparently you think you can buy me. One dark eyebrow arched. I'm buying a business partnership. The marriage is simply the framework that makes it legally binding. How romantic. The sarcasm dripped from my voice. Romance has nothing to do with this. He moved closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker, more primal. This is a business arrangement, Miss Morrison. Nothing more. Then let me be clear about what you're proposing. I crossed my arms, refusing to be intimidated despite the fact that he had at least 8 inches on me. You want me to marry you, play the dutiful wife, and in exchange, you save my father's company. Essentially, yes. For how long? 6 months. He pulled out a chair, gesturing for me to sit. This time I did, if only because my legs were shaking. He sat across from me, steepling his fingers. 6 months of marriage. You'll live in my penthouse, attend social functions as my wife, and maintain the appearance of a happy couple. In exchange, I'll inject £20 million into Morrison Hotels, settle your father's legal troubles, and restructure the debt. After 6 months, we'll have a quiet divorce. You'll be free, and your family's legacy will be secure. Why? The question burst out of me. Why would you do this? You could have anyone. You don't need to buy a wife. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Something that might have been pain, but it was gone too quickly to be sure. My reasons are my own. All you need to know is that I need a wife who won't ask questions, who won't fall in love with me, and who can play her part convincingly. You need money and a way out of your father's mess. We're both getting something we need. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. He leaned forward, and suddenly the air between us felt charged. I'm offering you a solution, Miss Morrison. Take it or leave it. But decide now. I don't have time to waste. I should have said no. I should have walked out, found another way, refused to be a pawn in whatever game this was. But all I could think about was my mother, the way she'd poured her heart into every hotel, every detail. The way she'd made me promise in her hospital room during those final days that I'd protect what she'd built. I have conditions, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm listening. Separate bedrooms. This is business only. You don't touch me and I don't touch you. Professional distance at all times except when we're in public. Agreed. And after the 6 months, I wanted in writing that I get a significant share of Morrison Hotels. Not as charity, as payment for my time. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You drive a hard bargain. I learned from watching vultures like you. The words were sharp, meant to wound. He didn't even flinch. Then we have a deal. He stood, pulling a pen from his jacket pocket and sliding a document across the table. Sign here, and your father's problems disappear. I looked down at the contract. Pages and pages of legal language that basically sold my soul for 6 months. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. One more thing, Dominic said, his voice dropping lower. This arrangement works because we both understand what it is. Don't catch feelings, Miss Morrison. Don't convince yourself this is anything more than a transaction. I'm not capable of love, and I'm not interested in pretending otherwise behind closed doors. I met his eyes, saw the ice there, the walls that seemed impenetrable. But I didn't want his love. I didn't want anything from him except the money to save my family. I wouldn't dream of it, Mr. Ashford. I signed my name on the line, the scratch of pen on paper sealing my fate. When do we start? Now. He took the contract, folded it precisely, and slipped it into his jacket. I've already made arrangements. Car is waiting downstairs to take you to my penthouse. You'll move in today. Today. My heart raced. I need time. Time is something neither of us has. He walked toward the door, then paused, looking back at me. Welcome to your new life, Miss Morrison. Try not to hate me too much. It'll make the next 6 months unbearable. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the conference room with the weight of what I'd just done crashing down around me. I'd sold myself to save my family. I'd agreed to marry a man who looked at me like I was a business acquisition. 6 months. I just had to survive 6 months. But as I sat there, staring at my hands, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a deal with the devil. And the devil always collected his due. I stood, smoothing down my skirt with shaking hands, and walked to the window where Dominic had stood moments before. London sprawled beneath me, grey and glittering and utterly indifferent to the fact that my life had just been sold to the highest bidder. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Car is waiting. Bring only essentials. Everything else will be provided. Of course. Dominic Ashford didn't do anything halfway. I was his now, at least on paper, and he'd make sure I looked the part. I took one last look at the Morrison Hotel's headquarters, at the empire my mother had built and my father had destroyed, and made myself a promise. 6 months. I'd play the perfect wife, smile for the cameras, and do whatever it took to honor my mother's legacy. But I would never, ever let Dominic Ashford break me. I'd survive this arrangement, get what I was owed, and walk away unscathed. How hard could it be? As I left the conference room and headed toward the elevator, I had no idea that I'd just asked the most dangerous question of my life, and that the answer would destroy me. Chapter 1. The Contract. Scarlet. The penthouse was obscene. That was the only word for it. Obscene in its luxury, its size, its sheer extravagance. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked all of London, the Thames snaking through the city like a silver ribbon. Modern furniture that probably cost more than most people's homes. Art on the walls that I recognized from auction catalogs. Originals, not prints. Everything was black, white, and gray. Cold. Sterile. Like the man who owned it. Your room is down the hall. Last door on the right. Dominic's voice came from behind me, and I turned to see him shrugging out of his suit jacket. Even that movement was controlled, precise. The housekeeper stocked your closet with appropriate clothing. If anything doesn't fit, let her know. Appropriate clothing, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the words. You mean you've already decided what I should wear? I mean I've ensured you have what you need to play your part. He loosened his tie, and I tried not to notice the way his throat moved when he swallowed. We have a public appearance tomorrow evening. Charity gala. Very high profile. You'll need to be convincing. I'm not an idiot, Mr. Ashford. I know how to behave at a gala. It's Dominic. His steel gray eyes fixed on me. We're married, or we will be in 3 days. You should probably start using my first name. The wedding. But I'd signed the contract 2 hours ago, and already my entire life had been reorganized. The wedding was scheduled for Friday. A small, private ceremony with just the necessary witnesses. Nothing romantic about it. Just another business transaction to be processed efficiently. Fine. Dominic. His name felt strange on my tongue. Too intimate. Where will you sleep? Master suite. Other end of the penthouse. He gestured vaguely. You won't even know I'm here. Somehow I doubted that. The man had a presence that filled every room he entered. But I nodded, grabbing my overnight bag. The only thing I'd been allowed to bring from my apartment. Everything else would be provided. Like I was a doll he was dressing up. I'll leave you to settle in. He was already walking toward his office, dismissing me. Dinner is at 8. Don't be late. I'm not your employee, I called after him. He stopped, turned slowly. No. You're my fiancé, which means you'll be expected to share meals with me when we're home. Maintain the illusion, Scarlett. That's what you're being paid for. Then he disappeared into his office, the door closing with a soft click that somehow felt like a slap. I stood in the middle of his massive living room, surrounded by luxury and utterly alone, and wondered what the hell I'd gotten myself into. My room, because I couldn't think of it as anything else, was beautiful in the same cold, impersonal way as the rest of the penthouse. King-sized bed with white linens, modern furniture, another wall of windows, and a closet the size of my old apartment's living room. Dominic hadn't been kidding about the clothes. The closet was full of designer dresses, casual wear, shoes, accessories. Everything in my size, everything perfectly coordinated. I pulled out a dress at random. Valentino, tag still on, probably worth more than a month's rent. This was my life now. Playing dress-up for a man who looked at me like I was an acquisition. I sank onto the bed, finally allowing myself to feel the weight of what I'd done. I'd sold 6 months of my life. 6 months of pretending to be in love with a man who'd made it crystal clear he was incapable of feeling anything. My phone buzzed. Maya, my best friend since university. Where are you? You disappeared. I stared at the text, unsure how to respond. How did I explain this? Hey, remember that crisis I mentioned? Well, I solved it by agreeing to marry a billionaire I've never met. Totally normal Tuesday. Long story. I'll call you tomorrow. Scarlett Morrison, you better not be doing something stupid. Too late for that. I tossed my phone aside and forced myself to unpack the few personal items I'd brought. Photos of my mother, her favorite book, a necklace she'd given me. Small pieces of my real life to anchor me in this sterile nightmare. A knock on the door made me jump. Come in, I called, expecting maybe a housekeeper. Instead, Dominic stood in the doorway, still in his dress shirt and slacks, tie gone. He looked tired. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked almost human. I forgot to give you this. He held out a small velvet box. My heart stuttered. What is it? Your engagement ring. We need to make this convincing, remember? He opened the box, revealing a massive diamond surrounded by smaller stones. It was stunning. It was also clearly worth a fortune. I can't wear that, I said automatically. You can and you will. He pulled the ring from the box and reached for my hand. I jerked back instinctively. His jaw tightened. It's just a ring, Scarlett. It's not going to bite you. Neither will you apparently, I muttered, but I extended my left hand. His fingers were warm as they circled my wrist, holding me steady while he slid the ring onto my finger. Fit perfectly. Of course it did. Dominic Ashford didn't do anything that wasn't perfect. There. He released my hand like I'd burned him. Now you look the part. I stared down at the ring, at the way it caught the light and threw rainbows across the white walls. It was beautiful and suffocating all at once. Why are you really doing this? The question escaped before I could stop it. And don't tell me it's just business. Nobody spends this much money on a 6-month arrangement without a reason. For a moment I thought he might actually answer. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Pain, maybe, or regret. But then his walls slammed back into place. My reasons are my own. You should get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. He turned to leave. Dominic. He paused, and I saw his shoulders tense. Thank you. For saving my father's company. Even if this is insane, even if I hate every second of it. Thank you. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't respond. Then, without turning around, don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what this life costs. Then he was gone, and I was alone again with a ring on my finger that weighed 1,000 pounds and a feeling in my gut that I'd just signed a deal with someone far more dangerous than I'd realized. Dominic. I closed the door to my office and poured myself 3 fingers of scotch. The burn down my throat was familiar, grounding. What the hell was I doing? I looked down at my own left hand, at the space where a wedding ring would soon sit, and felt something uncomfortably close to panic. This was supposed to be simple. Find a woman who needed money, offer her a deal, get what I needed, and walk away clean. Instead, I'd found Scarlett Morrison. She was supposed to be easy to control. Desperate enough to agree, practical enough to understand the terms. What I hadn't counted on was the fire in her green eyes when she'd looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. The way she'd stood her ground in that conference room, negotiating like she held any cards at all. The way her hand had felt in mine when I'd slipped that ring onto her finger. I drained the scotch and poured another. This was about Elena. It was always about Elena. My baby sister, the only person in the world I gave a damn about, needed me to be respectable. Married. Settled. The trustees controlling her inheritance had made that crystal clear. If I wanted them to release the funds she needed for her medical treatment, I needed to prove I was stable, responsible, the kind of man who could be trusted. Never mind that I'd built a £1 billion empire from nothing. Never mind that I'd proven myself 100 times over. My grandfather's will had been specific. Elena's trust fund would only be released to a married, stable family man. The old bastard had known exactly what he was doing. He'd always hated that I refused to play by his rules, refused to be the proper British heir he'd wanted. So he'd found a way to control me from beyond the grave. And Elena was paying the price. My phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. How did it go? Did you find someone? I looked toward the hallway where Scarlett's room was, imagining her settling into a space that would never feel like home. We're getting married Friday. What? Dominic, tell me you're joking. You can't just marry a stranger. It's handled. Don't worry about it. I'm always going to worry about you, you impossible man. Please tell me her name. Scarlett Morrison. Morrison Hotels. Was. Then she's beautiful. I just looked her up. Please tell me you're not going to break her heart. I stared at Elena's text, at the concern bleeding through even in digital form. My sweet, naive sister who still believed I was capable of love. Who hadn't figured out that I'd had that beaten out of me years ago. She knows what this is. It's business. Nothing more. Be careful. Sometimes business becomes personal. Not this time. Get some rest. I'll call you tomorrow. I set the phone down and walked to the window, looking out over the city I'd conquered. Below me, millions of people going about their lives, none of them knowing that Dominic Ashford, the Titan of London, the man who had everything, was trapped in a cage of his own making. 6 months. I just needed to maintain the charade for 6 months. Long enough to satisfy the trustees. Long enough to get Elena what she needed. Then Scarlett would get her money, I'd get my freedom back, and we'd both walk away. Simple. Except nothing about Scarlett Morrison felt simple. The way she'd looked at me in that conference room, like she could see straight through my carefully constructed armor. The defiance in her voice when she'd set her conditions. The vulnerability I'd glimpsed for just a second when she'd thanked me. I should have chosen someone else. Someone older, more jaded. Someone who wouldn't look at me with those eyes that seemed to demand something I couldn't give. But it was too late now. The contract was signed. The wheels were in motion. All I had to do was keep my distance. Stay cold. Remember that this was a transaction. 6 months. I could do anything for 6 months. Scarlett. Dinner at 8 turned out to be a private chef preparing some kind of artistic fish dish that probably cost more than my grocery budget for a month. We ate in silence at opposite ends of a dining table that could seat 12, the only sound the clink of silverware against china. It was the most awkward meal of my life. The gala tomorrow, Dominic finally said, not looking up from his plate. Attire is black tie. There's a dress in your closet. Navy blue floor length. Wear that. And if I don't want to wear navy blue? I couldn't help myself. His eyes finally met mine. Then wear whatever you want and deal with the consequences of looking out of place at one of London's most exclusive events. It must be exhausting, I said, setting down my fork. What? Being this controlling, this cold. Does it come naturally, or do you have to work at it? I expected anger. Instead, I got something that might have been amusement. It comes very naturally. And if you think this is cold, Scarlett, you haven't seen anything yet. Looking forward to it. The sarcasm dripped from my voice. Eat your dinner. He returned his attention to his plate. You'll need your strength. Tomorrow is when we start selling this to the world. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. I'm not hungry. I'll be in my room. Scarlett. Good night, Dominic. I didn't wait for his response. I walked out of that dining room with my head high and my heart pounding, determined not to let him see how much this was already affecting me. In my room, I changed into pajamas. My own, not the silk nightgowns that had been provided, and crawled into bed. The sheets smelled like expensive detergent and nothing else. No warmth, no personality. Just like everything else in this place. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Breakfast tomorrow at 7. We have meetings with my lawyers to finalize the marriage contract before the ceremony. Sleep well. Course. Even his text messages were cold and businesslike. I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling, watching the lights of London filter through the windows. Somewhere out there, my father was probably sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. His problems solved by selling his daughter. And somewhere in this penthouse, Dominic Ashford was probably in his own bed, not losing a moment of sleep over the woman he'd just purchased. I touched the ring on my finger, felt its weight. 6 months. I could survive anything for 6 months, even if it killed me. I woke at 3 in the morning to the sound of something crashing. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, when I heard swearing. Furious. Dominic. I should have stayed in my room. Should have let him deal with whatever crisis he was having. But something pulled me out of bed, padding barefoot down the hall toward the kitchen where the sound had come from. The lights were on, harsh and bright. Dominic stood in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by broken glass, blood dripping from his hand. Jesus, what happened? I rushed forward without thinking. Don't. He held up his uninjured hand, stopping me. There's glass everywhere. You're bleeding. I'm aware. He grabbed a dish towel and wrapped it around his hand. His jaw tight with either pain or anger. Probably both. Let me help. I don't need your help. The words were sharp, cutting. Go back to bed, Scarlett. You're bleeding all over your kitchen floor, and you're telling me to go back to bed? I stepped carefully around the glass, ignoring his protest. Where's your first aid kit? Bathroom. Under the sink. He said it reluctantly, like the admission cost him something. I found the kit and returned, grabbing his wrist before he could pull away. His skin was warm, his pulse racing under my fingers. Let me see. It's just a cut. Dominic. I looked up at him, and something in my expression must have convinced him, because he slowly unwrapped the towel. The cut was deep, still bleeding. You need stitches. It's fine. It's not fine. Do you have butterfly bandages in here? I dug through the first aid kit, found what I needed. Sit down. You're too tall. Bossy, he muttered, but he sat on one of the bar stools. I cleaned the wound as gently as I could, though he didn't even flinch. His hand was strong, scarred in places I hadn't expected. Working hands, despite the expensive suits and corporate lifestyle. How did this happen? I asked as I carefully closed the wound with the bandages. Couldn't sleep. Wanted a drink. Dropped the glass. His voice was flat, emotionless, but there was something underneath. Exhaustion maybe. Or something darker. Why couldn't you sleep? I don't sleep much. He watched me work, and I felt the weight of his gaze. I assume you have questions about tomorrow. The lawyers can be intense. I have questions about a lot of things. I secured the last bandage, but I didn't let go of his hand. Like why a man who has everything would pay £20 million for a fake wife. I told you. You told me your reasons are your own. But we're going to be married, Dominic. Living together. Pretending to be in love. Don't you think I deserve to know what I've really gotten myself into? For a long moment he just stared at me. Then, slowly, he pulled his hand away. My sister is sick. The trust fund our grandfather left her can only be accessed if I'm married. Cuddled. The kind of man the trustees deem worthy. The words were bitter, painful. That's why I need a wife. That's why you're here. The confession hung between us, raw and honest in a way I hadn't expected from him. I'm sorry, I said quietly. About your sister. Don't. He stood abruptly. Don't pity me. Don't try to make this into something it's not. I told you because you asked, but it doesn't change anything. This is still a business arrangement. Right. Business. I stepped back, suddenly aware that I was standing in his kitchen in my pajamas at 3 a.m, and we were far too close. I should go back to bed. Yes. But he didn't move, and neither did I. The air between us felt charged, dangerous. I could see his pulse beating in his throat, could smell the scotch on his breath mixed with something darker, more primal. His eyes dropped to my lips for just a second before he caught himself. Good night, Scarlett. His voice was rough. Good night, Dominic. I forced myself to turn away, to walk back to my room on shaking legs. Behind me, I heard him start cleaning up the broken glass, the sounds harsh in the quiet penthouse. In my room I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart racing. This was supposed to be simple. Business. Nothing more. So why did my hand still feel warm where he'd touched me? Why did I care that he had a sister who needed him? That underneath all that ice was something human? And why did the thought of tomorrow, of standing beside him in front of lawyers and witnesses and making this official, feel less like a business arrangement and more like stepping off a cliff? I looked down at the ring on my finger, at the way it caught the early morning light. 6 months, I reminded myself. Just 6 months. But as I climbed back into bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn, I couldn't shake the feeling that 6 months might be long enough to destroy me completely. Or change me forever. I wasn't sure which terrified me more. Chapter 2. Playing Pretend. Scarlett. The navy blue dress fit like it had been made for me. Because it probably had been. I stared at my reflection in the floor-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. The dress was stunning. Off-shoulder, form-fitting, with a thigh-high slit that felt dangerously revealing. My hair had been styled by a professional who'd arrived at 6 this morning, swept up in an elegant updo with a few strategic tendrils framing my face. Makeup that made my eyes look enormous and my lips look like they were begging to be kissed. I looked like Dominic Ashford's fiancée. I looked like someone I wasn't. Miss Morrison. Soft knock on my door. The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been nothing but professional. Mr. Ashford is waiting in the living room. Thank you. I'll be right there. I slipped on the Louboutin heels that had been laid out. Red soles, black patent leather, tall enough to make me feel powerful and precarious all at once. One last look in the mirror. The massive engagement ring caught the light, a constant reminder of what I'd agreed to. Showtime. Dominic stood by the windows, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a tumbler of what was probably scotch. He wore a tuxedo that should have been illegal, perfectly tailored, making his broad shoulders even broader, his tall frame even more imposing. His dark hair was styled back, and when he turned at the sound of my heels on the marble floor, those steel-gray eyes locked onto me with an intensity that stole my breath. He didn't say anything, just stared. Well, I did a small turn, hating that I wanted his approval. Do I look the part? You look. He trailed off, took a sip of his drink. Acceptable. Acceptable. Course. What had I expected? Compliment. How kind of you to say so. His jaw tightened. The car is waiting. We should go. He set down his glass and walked toward me, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. One more thing. He opened it to reveal a diamond necklace that matched my ring. Elegant, expensive, overwhelming. Turn around. I hesitated, then obeyed. His fingers brushed the nape of my neck as he fastened the clasp, and I felt that touch everywhere. My skin broke out in goosebumps despite myself. There. His voice was close to my ear, low and rough. Now you're ready. I turned to face him, and we were too close. I could smell his cologne, see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes. For a moment, neither of us moved. We should establish some ground rules, I said, needing to break the tension. For tonight. Such as, how much touching is required? What's our story about how we met? What? We'll improvise. He stepped back, creating distance. Follow my lead. Smile when you're supposed to smile. Laugh at my jokes even though I won't be making any. And for God's sake, don't flinch every time I touch you. I don't flinch. You do. His eyes held mine. Every single time. If we're supposed to be engaged, madly in love, planning a wedding, you need to act like my touch doesn't repel you. Maybe if your touch didn't feel like a business transaction. It is a business transaction. His voice was cold now, the brief warmth gone. That's the entire point. But nobody else can know that. So whatever issues you have with me with this arrangement, you leave them at the door. Understood. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that he couldn't just order me around like an employee. But he was right. This was what I'd signed up for. Understood, I said tightly. Shall we? He offered his arm. I took it, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath the expensive fabric of his tuxedo. We walked to the elevator in silence, rode down 40 floors without speaking, and climbed into the waiting limousine like we'd done this 1,000 times. Only when we were settled in the back seat, London flowing past the tinted windows, did he speak again. The gala is for the Children's Medical Foundation, he said, all business. I'm on the board. People will want to meet you, congratulate us. Marcus Vale will be there. Who's Marcus Vale? Something dark flickered across Dominic's face. A business rival. He's been trying to acquire some of my properties for years. He'll likely say things designed to upset you or me. Ignore him. What kind of things? The kind that are none of your concern. He pulled out his phone, effectively ending the conversation. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur, and wondered what I'd gotten myself into. Every time I thought I understood this arrangement, Dominic revealed another layer of complexity. Another person to avoid, another rule to follow, another wall to navigate. The limo pulled up to a historic building lit up like a palace, paparazzi already swarming behind velvet ropes. My heart started racing. Breathe, Dominic said quietly, tucking his phone away. You're Scarlett Morrison. You've been to 100 events like this. Not as someone's bought and paid for fiancé. No. He turned to face me fully. As my fiancé. My choice. The woman I'm going to marry. That's the story. That's the truth they need to believe. He reached over, took my hand. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, and I shivered. Can you do this? I looked down at our joined hands, then up at his face. In the dim light of the limo, he looked almost vulnerable, almost human. Yes, I said. I can do this. Good. But he didn't let go of my hand. Because once we step out of this car, everything changes. We're on. No breaks, no timeouts. Just us selling a love story. The door opened. The roar of cameras and shouted questions hit me like a wall. Dominic stepped out first, then turned, offering his hand. I took it, letting him help me from the car, and the moment my Louboutins hit the red carpet, the cameras went insane. Mr. Ashford. Over here. Who's your date? Is it true you're engaged? Scarlett, look this way. Dominic's arm slid around my waist, pulling me close against his side. It was possessive, protective, and I had to force myself not to tense. Instead, I smiled, the practiced smile I'd learned from years of charity events with my mother, and leaned into him. Just smile and walk, he murmured into my hair, making it look like he was saying something intimate. We're not stopping for questions. We made our way up the red carpet, cameras flashing, people shouting. His hand on my waist felt like a brand, hot and claiming. When we reached the entrance, he paused, turned me to face him, and for a second I forgot how to breathe. You're doing great, he said softly, and then, in front of 100 cameras, he leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. It was chaste, appropriate, exactly what an adoring fiancé would do. So why did it feel like he'd set me on fire? Dominic. She was magnificent. I'd known Scarlett was beautiful. I had eyes after all. But seeing her in that dress, seeing the way she held her head high despite her nervousness, the way she smiled for the cameras like she'd been born to this. Christ. I was in trouble. This was supposed to be simple. Find a woman who needed money, offer a deal, maintain professional distance. Instead, I'd found a woman who looked at me like she could see through every wall I'd ever built, who felt perfect tucked against my side, whose skin had broken out in goosebumps when I'd fastened her necklace. And that kiss, just a kiss to her forehead, had made me want things I had no business wanting. Dominic! A too loud voice pulled me back to reality. Gerald Thornton, one of the foundation board members, approaching with his wife. You made it. And this must be the mysterious fiancé we've all been hearing about. Gerald, Patricia. I shook his hand, keeping Scarlett close. This is Scarlett Morrison. Scarlett, Gerald, and Patricia Thornton. It's lovely to meet you, Scarlett said, and her smile was warm, genuine. Nothing like the brittle politeness I'd expected. Dominic has told me so much about the foundation's work. I hadn't told her anything. The woman was improvising and doing it well. Oh, how wonderful! Patricia beamed. And when did you two meet? Dominic's been so secretive. Scarlett looked up at me, her green eyes sparkling with mischief. Should I tell them, darling? Darling. The endearment should have annoyed me. Instead, it sent heat down my spine. Be my guest, I said, curious to see what she'd come up with. We met at an art auction 6 months ago. She leaned into me, her hand resting on my chest. Through the layers of fabric, I could feel her warmth. Dominic bid on the same painting I wanted. We ended up in a bidding war that got quite heated. Who won? Gerald asked, laughing. He did. Scarlett's smile turned playful. But he asked me to dinner to apologize for bankrupting me over a Monet. I said yes only because I wanted to lecture him on proper auction etiquette. And instead, I fell in love with the most stubborn, infuriating, brilliant woman I'd ever met. The words came out easier than they should have. She made me work for it, though. I like to make things interesting. She looked up at me, and something in her eyes made my breath catch. For a second, I almost believed the story we were telling. Well, you two are absolutely adorable, Patricia gushed. When's the wedding? Soon, I said firmly. Very soon. We see no point in waiting. How romantic. She clasped her hands together. You must tell me all about it. Scarlett, do you have a dress picked out? As Patricia whisked Scarlett away to discuss wedding details that would never happen, Gerald clapped me on the shoulder. You're a lucky man, Ashford. That woman is special. I know, I said, watching Scarlett laugh at something Patricia said. And the terrifying thing was, I wasn't entirely lying. Scarlett. 2 hours into the gala, I'd met more people than I could possibly remember, drunk 3 glasses of champagne, and discovered that playing Dominic Ashford's fiancée was exhausting. But I was good at it. Every time someone asked about our relationship, I had an answer ready. Every time Dominic's hand found the small of my back or his fingers intertwined with mine, I leaned into it instead of pulling away. Every time he looked at me with those intense gray eyes, I gazed back like he was the only man in the room. And the terrifying thing, sometimes it didn't feel like acting. You're a natural at this, Dominic murmured as we moved toward the ballroom where dinner would be served. His lips were close to my ear, sending shivers down my spine. Almost too good. Disappointed. I shot back quietly, hoping I'd fail. No. His hand tightened on my waist. Just surprised. Before I could respond, a tall man with silver hair and a predatory smile appeared in front of us. Everything about him screamed money and power, but unlike Dominic's controlled danger, this man's felt chaotic, volatile. Ashford. The man's smile was all teeth. I heard rumors you'd found yourself a bride. I had to see it to believe it. Dominic's entire body went rigid. Vale. His voice was ice. Still prowling charity events looking for your next victim? Now. Marcus Vale's eyes slid to me, and I fought the urge to step back. No need to be rude in front of your lovely companion. Marcus Vale. And you are. Taken, Dominic said before I could respond. Vale laughed, but there was no humor in it. Possessive already. You work fast, Ashford. He turned his attention fully to me, and his gaze felt like oil on my skin. Tell me, darling, does he treat you well? Or has he already shown you his true colors? I don't know what you mean, I said coolly, channeling every bit of Morrison ice I'd inherited. Oh, I think you do. Vale stepped closer, too close. Dominic has quite the reputation. Ask him about Victoria. Ask him what happened when she dared to actually love him. That's enough. Dominic's voice was deadly quiet. Walk away, Marcus. Now. Or what? Vale's smile widened. You'll lose your temper. Make a scene. Ruin your perfect image in front of all these lovely donors. He looked at me again. You're a beautiful woman, miss. Morrison, I said, lifting my chin. Scarlett Morrison. And I'd appreciate it if you'd step back. You're in my personal space. Feisty. Vale didn't move. I like that. Tell me, Scarlett Morrison, how much is he paying you to play this role? Because I'll double it. The words hit me like a slap. He knew. Somehow, this man knew our engagement was fake. She's not for sale. Dominic's hand left my waist, and suddenly he was between me and Vale. His body a wall of protection. Neither is she a role. Scarlett is my fiancée, and if you ever speak to her like that again, I will destroy you. Every business you own, every asset you have, I will burn it all down. Are we clear? The ballroom had gone quiet. People were staring. I should have been embarrassed, mortified. Instead, I felt something dangerous bloom in my chest. Dominic was defending me. Actually defending me. Vale held up his hands in mock surrender. Touchy subject. My apologies. But his eyes promised this wasn't over. Enjoy your evening, you two. I'm sure it will be memorable. He disappeared into the crowd, and slowly conversation resumed. But the damage was done. People were whispering, watching us with renewed interest. Come on. Dominic took my hand, his grip almost painful. We're leaving. We can't leave. Dinner hasn't even been served. I don't care. He was already pulling me toward the exit, his jaw tight with barely contained fury. I'm not staying here and letting him. I dug in my heels, stopping him. Dominic, wait. He turned, and the rage in his eyes nearly made me step back. But I held my ground. If we leave now, he wins, I said quietly. Everyone will think he got to you, that he knows something. Is that what you want? I want to put my fist through his face. I know. I stepped closer, reaching up to straighten his bow tie even though it was perfect. The gesture was intimate, familiar, the kind of thing a real fiancé would do. But we're better than that. We're smarter than that. So we're going to go back in there, have an amazing dinner, dance like we don't have a care in the world, and show everyone that Marcus Vale is nothing but a bitter man with a grudge. He stared down at me, and slowly, the rage in his eyes shifted to something else, something that made my breath catch. When did you become so good at this? He asked softly. I learned from the best. I smiled up at him. My mother taught me that the best revenge is living well, looking happy. So let's go be deliriously happy, Dominic. Let's make him regret ever opening his mouth. For a long moment he just looked at me. Then slowly he raised his hand and cupped my face. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and I felt that touch all the way to my toes. You're remarkable, he said, and it didn't sound like part of the act. I know. I tried to keep my voice light, even though my heart was pounding. Now come on. Let's go show them how it's done. Dominic. We stayed. We ate dinner at a table full of London's elite, and Scarlett charmed every single one of them. She told stories that made them laugh, asked thoughtful questions that made them feel important, and whenever anyone mentioned our engagement, she looked at me like I'd hung the moon. It was perfect. She was perfect. And I was completely screwed. Because somewhere between the auction story she'd made up and the way she'd stood her ground against Marcus Vale, between her hand in mine and the way she'd smoothed my bow tie with such casual intimacy, I'd forgotten this was fake. When they cleared the plates and the band started playing, I did what any besotted fiancé would do. I stood, offered my hand, and led her onto the dance floor. I should warn you, she said as I pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. I'm a terrible dancer. Liar. I started moving, and she followed perfectly, fitting against me like she'd been made for it. You're full of surprises, Scarlett Morrison. Good surprises or bad surprises. I haven't decided yet. I spun her and she laughed, real and bright and beautiful. When she came back to me, we were closer than before. You handled Vale well. He's a pig. Yes. I guided us across the floor, very aware of every place we touched. What he said about Victoria. You don't owe me explanations about your past, Dominic. This isn't real, remember. But it felt real. With her body pressed against mine, her hand on my shoulder, her green eyes looking up at me, it felt dangerously, terrifyingly real. Victoria was my fiancée, I heard myself say. 3 years ago. I was going to marry her, build a life with her. And then I came home early from a business trip and found her in bed with my business partner. Scarlett's eyes widened. Dominic. That's why I don't do love. Why I won't do love. I needed her to understand. Whatever this is, whatever you're feeling. I'm not feeling anything, she said quickly. Too quickly. This is acting. That's all. Good. But the word tasted like ash. Because if you start to feel something real, this ends badly for both of us. The music swelled around us, and I realized we'd stopped moving. We were just standing there in the middle of the dance floor, staring at each other like the rest of the world had disappeared. Her lips parted, and I couldn't stop looking at her mouth. This was a bad idea. Terrible idea. I leaned down anyway. Dominic, she breathed, and I felt it against my lips. The kiss was supposed to be for show. We were in public, people were watching, it would sell the illusion. That's what I told myself as I closed the distance between us. But the moment my lips touched hers, I knew I was lying. She tasted like champagne and something sweeter, something uniquely her. Her hand tightened on my shoulder, and I deepened the kiss, pulling her closer, forgetting where we were, forgetting every rule I'd set. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the ballroom erupted in applause and wolf whistles. But we had an audience. "Well," Scarlett said, her voice shaky, her lips swollen from my kiss. "That should convince them." "Yes." I forced myself to step back to create distance. "Very convincing." But as I led her off the dance floor, as we made our excuses and finally escaped to the waiting limousine, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just crossed a line I'd sworn never to cross. And the worst part, I wanted to cross it again. Scarlett. The ride home was silent. Dominic stared out his window, jaw tight, hands clenched. I stared out mine, replaying that kiss over and over in my mind like a movie I couldn't turn off. It was just acting. It didn't mean anything. Except it had felt like everything. When we finally reached the penthouse, Dominic was out of the car before it fully stopped, his long strides eating up the distance to the elevator. I followed in my ridiculous heels, struggling to keep up. "Dominic, wait." "Good night, Scarlett." He didn't turn around. "You did well tonight." The elevator doors closed between us before I could respond, and I was left standing in the garage, alone and confused and still tasting him on my lips. By the time I made it up to the penthouse, taking the next elevator, he'd disappeared into his office. I heard the lock click. Clear message, stay away. Fine. I didn't need his explanations or his mood swings. I kicked off my heels, unzipped the dress, and changed into my pajamas with shaking hands. The necklace went back in its box. The ring stayed on. I was too tired to figure out how to remove it. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Dominic had defended me against Vale. The way his hand had felt on my face. The way he'd kissed me like he was drowning and I was air. This is business, I reminded myself. He made that very clear. Except business didn't feel like that kiss. And business didn't explain why, 3 hours later, I was still awake, still feeling the ghost of his lips on mine, still wishing he'd knock on my door and tell me he'd felt it too. The lie I was living was starting to feel more real than anything I'd ever known. And that terrified me more than anything else. Because in 3 days, I'd be marrying Dominic Ashford. And I was starting to suspect that 6 months wouldn't be nearly enough time to forget him. Or nearly short enough to survive him. Chapter 3. Cracks in the Armor. Scarlett. Wedding planning for a fake wedding was its own special kind of torture. What do you think of this one? The wedding planner, a woman named Veronica who probably cost more per hour than most people made in a week, held up a sample of cream-colored cardstock. Or this. Another sample, this one ivory. They looked identical to me. "The cream," I said, because she seemed to expect an answer. "Excellent choice." Veronica made a note on her tablet. "And for the flowers, you mentioned you wanted something simple?" "Yes. White roses. Nothing too elaborate. Because this wasn't real. Because in 6 months, this would all be over. And I didn't want to remember an elaborate, beautiful wedding that had been nothing but a business transaction. White roses it is." More notes. Now about the venue. Mr. Ashford suggested his family's estate in the Cotswolds. Have you seen it? No. I'd never even heard him mention it. It's stunning. Very private, very exclusive. Perfect for an intimate ceremony. Veronica pulled up photos on her tablet, and even I had to admit the place was breathtaking. Rolling hills, a stone manor house that looked like something from a period drama, gardens that probably required a full-time staff. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. "Isn't it? We could set up the ceremony in the rose garden, reception in the ballroom. With only 50 guests, it will feel cozy rather than empty." 50 guests. All of them Dominic's business associates, probably. People who needed to witness this farce to make it legitimate. "Miss Morrison." Veronica's voice pulled me back. "Are you all right? You seem distracted." "I'm fine." I forced a smile. "Just overwhelmed. It's a lot to take in." "Of course it is. Planning a wedding in less than a week would make anyone's head spin. She patted my hand sympathetically. But don't worry. I'll handle everything. All you need to do is show up and look beautiful. That's all I was good for, apparently. Looking beautiful and playing my part. After Veronica left, promising to send over more samples and schedules, I sat alone in the penthouse living room, staring at the engagement ring on my finger. 3 days until the wedding. 3 days until this became legally binding. I should have been panicking. Instead, I felt numb. My phone buzzed. Meh. Coffee. I'm dying to hear about the mystery man who swept you off your feet. I stared at the text, guilt churning in my stomach. I'd been avoiding her since signing the contract, making excuses about being busy. She didn't know about the arrangement. Nobody did except Dominic, me, and the lawyers who'd drawn up the papers. Can't today. Wedding planning. Rain check. Wedding. Scarlett Morrison, you better call me right now. I turned off my phone. I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't admit that I'd sold myself to save my father's failing company. That I was marrying a man who'd made it crystal clear he would never love me. That every smile, every touch, every moment between us was carefully calculated and completely empty. Except for that kiss. I touched my lips, remembering. That hadn't felt empty. That had felt like drowning and flying all at once. Still thinking about it, I jumped at the sound of Dominic's voice. He stood in the doorway to his office, tie loosened, shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes that suggested he'd slept as poorly as I had. Thinking about what? I tried to sound casual. The gala. The kiss. He walked into the room, and I tracked his movement like prey tracking a predator. You've been avoiding me for 2 days. You've been locked in your office for 2 days. Because I've been working. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. And because I needed space. From me. From this. He gestured between us. From whatever the hell is happening that shouldn't be happening. My heart started pounding. Nothing's happening. We kissed for show. That's all. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't lie to me, Scarlett. You felt it. Felt it. And it can't happen again. Why not? The question escaped before I could stop it. We're supposed to be engaged. Shouldn't we at least be able to kiss without it being some kind of crisis? Because kissing leads to other things. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. And other things lead to complications we don't need. So what do you suggest? We go through the wedding, live together for 6 months, and never touch each other. Yes. But he didn't sound convinced. That's ridiculous. People will notice. They'll wonder why we don't. We'll manage. He turned away, creating distance. My sister arrives tomorrow. She'll be staying here for a few days. The subject change was deliberate, obvious. But the mention of his sister sparked my curiosity. Elena. Yes. He glanced back at me. She wants to meet you. I couldn't very well refuse. Of course not. I stood, smoothing down my casual clothes, jeans and a sweater, a far cry from last night's gown. What did you tell her about us? The truth. My stomach dropped. You told her this is fake. Elena is the only person I trust with the truth. His eyes held mine. She knows about the trust fund, knows why I need to be married. But she's also... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Romantic. She's going to try to make this real. Make this real, I repeated. As in, make us fall in love. As in, convince herself we're already in love and just too stubborn to admit it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She's persistent. Fair warning. I can handle your sister. Can you? The smile faded. Because Elena sees things other people miss. She'll look at you and know exactly how you're feeling. And if she thinks I'm hurting you, you're not hurting me. The lie tasted bitter. This is business. We both know what this is. He studied me for a long moment. Right. Business. But he didn't sound like he believed it any more than I did. Dominic. Elena arrived the next morning like a hurricane in designer clothes. Dom. She threw herself into my arms the moment I opened the door, and I caught her automatically, holding tight. My baby sister. The only person in the world who could make me feel human. Careful, I murmured, pulling back to look at her. She looked good, color in her cheeks, bright eyes, genuine smile. The treatment was working. You're supposed to be taking it easy. I'm fine. She waved off my concern. Stop fussing. Where is she? Where's the mysterious bride-to-be? Scarlett. I called, knowing she was hiding in her room, probably nervous about this meeting. Come meet my sister. Scarlett emerged from the hallway, and I watched Elena's reaction. My sister's eyes went wide, then bright with mischief. Oh my God, Elena breathed. Dumb. She's gorgeous. Elena. I saw pictures, but in person. She was already moving forward, grabbing Scarlett's hands. Hi, I'm Elena. Dominic's favorite sister. His only sister, I corrected. Semantics. Elena beamed at Scarlett, who looked slightly overwhelmed. It's so lovely to meet you. Dom has told me absolutely nothing about you, which means you must be special. It's wonderful to meet you too, Scarlett said, and her smile was genuine warm. Dominic mentioned you'd be visiting. Visiting and inspecting. Elena linked her arm through Scarlett's like they were old friends. I need to make sure you're good enough for my brother. He's very particular, you know. I've noticed, Scarlett said dryly, and Elena laughed. Oh, I like her. Dom, I like her. She has sass. Elena was already pulling Scarlett toward the living room. Come on, let's have tea and you can tell me everything. How you met, when he proposed, what he's like when he's not being Mr. Business Mogul. Elena. I followed them, feeling control of the situation slipping away. Maybe give Scarlett some space to breathe. Space is overrated. Elena settled onto the couch, patting the spot next to her for Scarlett. Besides, if she's going to be my sister, we should get to know each other. Mrs. Chen. She called toward the kitchen. Could we have tea, please? I watched Scarlett sit beside Elena, watched my sister immediately start peppering her with questions, and felt something uncomfortable settle in my chest. This was supposed to be simple. Elena would meet Scarlett, they'd be polite to each other, and that would be that. I hadn't counted on them actually liking each other. Scarlett. Elena Ashford was nothing like her brother. Where Dominic was cold and controlled, Elena was warm and spontaneous. Where he kept people at arm's length, she pulled them close. And where he seemed to view emotions as weaknesses, she wore hers openly, honestly. I liked her immediately. So you met at an art auction? Elena asked, eyes sparkling as we sipped tea. Dominic had disappeared into his office, probably unable to handle his sister's interrogation, leaving us alone. That's so romantic. It wasn't that romantic, I said, remembering the story I'd told at the gala. We argued over a painting. But arguing is the best part. Elena leaned forward conspiratorially. It means there's passion. Chemistry. Tell me, when did you realize you were falling for him? The question caught me off guard. When had I started falling for Dominic? Because somewhere along the way, between signed contracts and forced proximity and stolen kisses, something had shifted. I don't know, I said honestly. It kind of snuck up on me. That's how it happens. Elena smiled softly. One day you're arguing over a painting, the next you can't imagine your life without him. You pause. He told me about the arrangement. My stomach clenched. He did. Don't worry. Your secret is safe with me. She squeezed my hand. But I have to ask, is it really just business? Because the way he looks at you in those photos from the gala, that's not the look of a man playing pretend. Elena, I know my brother. She cut me off gently. He spent 3 years building walls so high even I can barely reach him sometimes. Victoria destroyed something in him when she betrayed him. But with you, she smiled. I see cracks in those walls. And that scares him to death. This is temporary, I said, as much to convince myself as her. 6 months and then what? You both walk away and pretend this never happened. Elena shook her head. Life doesn't work that way, Scarlett. Feelings don't work that way. He doesn't have feelings for me. He defended you against Marcus Vale. Dominic doesn't defend anyone except me. And the way he kissed you in those photos. She pulled out her phone, showing me pictures from the gala that I hadn't seen. Dominic and me on the dance floor. His hand on my face. Our lips locked in a kiss that looked anything but fake. I stared at the photo, at the way he was holding me like I was precious, like I mattered. That's not business, Elena said softly. That's a man falling in love and terrified to admit it. You're a romantic. I tried to laugh it off. You're seeing what you want to see. Maybe. She set down her phone. Or maybe I'm seeing what both of you are too stubborn to admit. But I'll tell you this, if you hurt him, if you take his money and walk away after 6 months without giving this a real chance, I will hunt you down. The threat was delivered with a smile, but I heard the steel underneath. Elena loved her brother fiercely, protectively. I would never hurt him on purpose, I said quietly. I know. She squeezed my hand again. Because you're falling for him too. And that's why this is all so complicated. Before I could respond, my phone rang. My father. I should take this, I said apologetically. Of course. I'll go bother Dom in his office. Elena stood, then paused. Scarlett. Whatever happens, I'm glad he found you. Even if he doesn't know it yet. She disappeared down the hall, and I answered the phone with shaking hands. Scarlett. My father's voice was stronger than it had been in months. How are the wedding preparations? Fine. I walked to the windows, looking out over London. Everything's on schedule. Good. Good. I know this hasn't been easy for you. This arrangement. That was the closest to an apology I'd ever get from Richard Morrison. I'm managing, I said. You're doing more than managing. The publicity has been excellent. Investors are already calling, wanting back in. You're saving the company, Scarlett. Your mother would be proud. Would she? Would my mother be proud that I'd sold myself for Morrison Hotels? I have to go, I said abruptly. I'll call you later. I hung up before he could respond, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. This was what I'd wanted, to save my mother's legacy. So why did it feel like I was losing myself in the process? Scarlett. I turned to find Dominic in the doorway, concern etched on his face. I'm fine. That was your father. It wasn't a question. Yes. I wiped at my eyes quickly. He's pleased with how things are going. The publicity is helping the company. Dominic crossed the room, stopping in front of me. You're crying. I'm not. He reached out, catching a tear with his thumb. The gesture was so gentle, so unexpected that it broke something in me. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. Pretend to be happy. Pretend this means nothing. Scarlett. Because it does mean something. The words poured out, unstoppable now. That kiss meant something. The way you defended me against Vale meant something. And I know you said not to catch feelings, but I don't know how to stop. He kissed me. It wasn't like the kiss at the gala, calculated and public. This was desperate, hungry, real. His hands cupped my face, and I melted into him, letting myself feel everything I'd been trying to suppress. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This is a terrible idea, he said. The worst, I agreed. We're going to hurt each other. Probably. I can't love you. His voice was rough. I don't know how. I'm not asking you to. I pulled back to look at him. I'm just asking you to stop pretending you don't feel anything. He stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Okay. 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 He brushed his thumb across my bottom lip. But we do this carefully. We don't let it consume us. We keep boundaries. Boundaries, I repeated. Like separate bedrooms. Like separate bedrooms. And no more spontaneous kissing. I didn't say that. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that might have been a smile. I said we'd be careful. I didn't say I was a saint. Despite everything, I laughed. And when he pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me in a way that felt protective rather than possessive, I let myself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this could work. That maybe we could find something real in the middle of all this pretend. I like her. Elena's voice came from the hallway. I wasn't sure, but I like her. You can keep her. Elena. Dominic's voice held warning. How long have you been standing there? Long enough to see you two finally admit what everyone else already knew. She grinned at us, completely unrepentant. You're terrible at hiding your feelings, by the way. Both of you. We're not, I started. Oh, please. You're absolutely gone for each other. She walked into the room, plopping down on the couch. Which makes the whole "this is just business" thing hilarious. But don't worry, your secret is safe with me. Dominic looked at me helplessly, and I had to fight not to laugh at his expression. Apparently, the great Dominic Ashford was no match for his younger sister. Now, Elena crossed her legs, looking far too pleased with herself. Let's talk about the wedding. Because if you two are going to do this, even if you won't admit you're actually in love, we're going to do it right. Scarlett, what's your favorite flower? White roses, I said automatically. Boring. Dominic, what's her favorite flower? He paused, and I realized I'd never told him. I don't. Peonies, I said softly. My mother's favorite. But they're expensive and budget is not a concern. Dominic's eyes held mine. If you want peonies, we'll have peonies. See? Elena beamed. This is why you two are perfect together. He already wants to give you the world, and you're still trying to be practical. It's adorable. We're not adorable, Dominic said. You are. She pulled out her phone. I'm texting Veronica right now. Peonies instead of roses. And we need to talk about your dress, Scarlett. Because I have opinions. As Elena launched into wedding planning with the enthusiasm of someone who lived for this kind of thing, I caught Dominic's eye. He looked resigned but not unhappy, and when he reached over and took my hand, threading our fingers together, it felt natural. But 3 more days, he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. 3 more days, I echoed. And then I'd be Mrs. Dominic Ashford. At least on paper. But as his thumb traced circles on my palm, as Elena planned a wedding that was supposed to mean nothing, as I felt myself falling deeper into something I couldn't control, I wondered if the paper would be enough. Or if somewhere along the way, this arrangement had stopped being fake and started being the most real thing in my life. Dominic. Late that night, after Elena had finally gone to bed in one of the guest rooms and Scarlett had retreated to her own space, I stood in my office nursing a scotch and staring at the city lights. What the hell was I doing? I'd set out to find a convenient wife. Someone who needed money badly enough to agree to my terms. Someone who wouldn't ask questions or expect emotions I couldn't give. Instead, I'd found Scarlett. Scarlett, who challenged me at every turn. Who looked at me like she could see the man beneath the armor. Who tasted like sunshine and made me want things I'd buried 3 years ago. I picked up my phone, scrolled to a photo from the gala. Scarlett in my arms, her head thrown back in laughter at something I'd said. She looked happy. Radiant. I looked like a man in love. Damn it, I muttered, setting down my phone. I couldn't love her. Love was weakness. Love was Victoria in another man's bed. The engagement ring I'd chosen so carefully sitting on the nightstand like a joke. Love was pain and betrayal and everything I'd sworn to never experience again. But this, whatever this was, didn't feel like weakness. It felt like the first real thing I'd experienced in 3 years. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Enjoy the wedding, Ashford. I hope your bride knows what she's getting into. Marcus Vale. Course. I deleted the text without responding. But the message lingered, planting seeds of doubt. Did Scarlett know what she was getting into? Did she understand that even if I wanted to love her, and I couldn't, I was fundamentally broken? That Victoria had taken the parts of me capable of trust and shattered them beyond repair? Another text, this one from Scarlett. Can't sleep. Too many thoughts. I stared at the message, then at the door that separated us. I should leave her alone. Should maintain the boundaries I'd insisted on. Instead, I found myself walking down the hall, knocking softly on her door. "Come in," she called. She was sitting in bed, hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a tank top and shorts that showed entirely too much skin. My mouth went dry. "You texted," I said like an idiot. "I did." She set down her phone. "I didn't expect you to actually come." "Neither did I." I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me. "Dangerous territory. What are you thinking about?" "Everything. The wedding. Your sister. This." She gestured between us. "What are we doing, Dominic?" "I don't know." I sat on the edge of her bed, careful to maintain distance. "But I think we passed the point of no return somewhere around that kiss at the gala. Do you regret it?" "Every second." I looked at her. "And not at all." She smiled, soft and sad. "That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me." "Probably." I reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She shivered at the touch. "Elena likes you." "I like her. She's wonderful. She's a menace." But I said it with affection. "And she's right about one thing. We're terrible at hiding what we're feeling." "What are we feeling?" The question hung between us, heavy with possibility and fear. "I don't know," I said finally. "But it scares the hell out of me." "Me too." We sat in silence for a moment, just breathing the same air, existing in the same space. Then Scarlett shifted closer, resting her head on my shoulder. Should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like coming home. "Stay," she whispered. "Just for a little while. I don't want to be alone." I should have said no. Should have maintained those boundaries. But I was tired of fighting what I felt. Tired of pretending I didn't want to be close to her. "Okay," I said and pulled her down with me, holding her against my chest as we lay in her bed. "Just for a little while." She fell asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out, her body relaxing against mine. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling her heartbeat against my ribs, and wondered when exactly I'd started falling, and whether I'd survive the landing. Chapter 4. The Wedding. Scarlett. The morning of my wedding, I woke up alone. Dominic had left some time before dawn, probably retreating to the safety of his own room before anyone could see us together. Before what we'd shared last night, just holding each other, nothing more, could become something neither of us was ready to name. I stared at the ceiling of the Cotswolds Estate's bridal suite, listening to the sound of people bustling around downstairs preparing for a wedding that felt both surreal and inevitable. Today, I would become Mrs. Dominic Ashford. The knock on my door was gentle. "Scarlett. It's Elena. Can I come in?" "Please," I called, grateful not to be alone with my thoughts. Elena entered carrying a tray with coffee and pastries, her smile warm and knowing. "Wedding day breakfast. A tradition." She set the tray down and sat on the edge of my bed. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," I admitted. "Good. That means it matters." She poured coffee for both of us. Bad weddings are the ones where nobody feels anything. This is supposed to be a bad wedding. I took the cup she offered, wrapping my hands around its warmth. "A business arrangement. Nothing more." "Funny. You don't look like a woman entering a business arrangement." Elena studied me over the rim of her cup. "You look like a woman about to marry someone she's falling in love with." "Elena. It's okay to be scared, Scarlett. It's okay to feel things you didn't plan to feel." She reached over, squeezed my hand. "My brother is terrified too, if it helps. I saw him this morning. He looked like a man walking to his execution." "That's not comforting." "It should be." She smiled. "Because Dominic only gets scared when something matters." When he cares. He spent 3 years not caring about anything except business and me. And now here you are making him feel things again. That's terrifying for him. What if we're making a mistake? The question escaped before I could stop it. What if this all blows up and we destroy each other? Then you'll have had something real for however long it lasted. Elena's eyes were serious now. My brother has been dead inside for 3 years. You've brought him back to life. Whatever happens after this, at least you'll have given him that. Before I could respond, there was another knock. Maya burst in, eyes wild. Okay, someone better start explaining right now why I had to find out through Instagram that my best friend is getting married today. She stopped, seeing Elena. Oh, sorry. Hey Maya. Scarlett's very confused and slightly betrayed best friend. Elena. Dominic's sister. Elena stood, offered her hand. And you have every right to be confused. This has all happened very fast. Fast? Maya whirled on me. Scarlett, 2 weeks ago you were telling me about your father's company troubles. Now you're marrying a billionaire. What the hell happened? I looked at Elena helplessly. She gave me a small nod and quietly excused herself. I'll give you two some privacy. Scarlett, hair and makeup will be here in an hour. When Elena left, Maya sat exactly where she'd been, arms crossed. Talk. Now. So I told her. Not everything, not about the contract or the money, but about meeting Dominic, about the whirlwind romance that wasn't really a romance, about agreeing to marry someone I barely knew. This is insane, Maya said when I finished. Even for you, this is insane. I know. Do you love him? The question hit me like a punch. I don't know. Maybe. I think I'm starting to. And does he love you? No. The word hurt to say. He's very clear about that. He doesn't do love. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. Listen to me. If this man hurts you, if he breaks your heart, I will destroy him. Billionaire or not. Understood. Despite everything, I laughed. Understood. Good. She pulled me into a fierce hug. Now let's get you married. Because insane or not, you're my best friend, and I'm not missing this. Dominic. I was going to be sick. You look like hell, James, my driver and the closest thing I had to a friend, said as he helped me with my tie. When's the last time you slept? I don't remember. I stared at my reflection in the mirror of the estate's library, which had been converted into a groom's suite. The man looking back was a stranger, pale, tense, terrified. Cold feet, James asked. Frozen solid. You could still call it off. Could I? The trust fund depended on this marriage. Elena's treatment depended on this marriage. But more than that, I didn't want to call it off. That was the terrifying part. Somewhere between the contract signing and this morning, this had stopped being about the trust fund and started being about Scarlett. About the way she looked at me like I was worth something. About the way she felt in my arms last night, soft and warm and real. I can't call it off, I said quietly. Because of the trust fund. Because I don't want to. James smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. You know, in all the years I've known you, I've never seen you like this. Like what? Human. He clapped me on the shoulder. It's good. Scary as hell, but good. Knock on the door. Marcus Vale's assistant, of all people, stood there with an envelope. Mr. Ashford. This was delivered for you. I took the envelope, already knowing who it was from. Inside was a single photo, Scarlett and me from the gala, the kiss that had changed everything, with a note scrawled on the back. Enjoy your wedding day. Let's see how long she lasts once she discovers what you really are. Problem? James asked, seeing my expression. Marcus being Marcus. I crumpled the note. Nothing I can't handle. But as I walked toward the rose garden where the ceremony would take place, as I took my position at the altar surrounded by 50 witnesses, I couldn't shake Vale's words. What would Scarlett do when she discovered what I really was? When she realized that beneath the expensive suits and controlled exterior, I was just a broken man with more scars than soul. The string quartet started playing and my breath caught. 'Cause there she was. Scarlett. The wedding dress was a dream. White silk that flowed like water off shoulder sleeves. A bodice that made me feel like a princess. My hair was down in soft waves. A simple veil held in place by my mother's pearl comb. The something borrowed. "You look beautiful," Maya whispered as she adjusted my veil. "Absolutely stunning." "I feel like I'm going to throw up," I admitted. "That's normal." Elena appeared on my other side, both of them serving as my bridesmaids. "Trust me, the moment you see him, everything else will fade away." The music changed. Wedding march. Time to go. My father was supposed to walk me down the aisle. But when I saw him standing there, the man who'd sold me to save his company, I couldn't do it. "I'm walking alone," I told the wedding coordinator. "But tradition." "I'm walking alone." My voice was firm. So I did. I walked down that petal-strewn path between rows of white chairs, past faces I barely knew, carrying a bouquet of white peonies. Dominic's gift, toward a future I couldn't predict. And then I saw him. Dominic stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, looking devastating and vulnerable all at once. But it was his expression that stopped my heart. He wasn't looking at me like a business acquisition or a means to an end. He was looking at me like I was the answer to a question he'd forgotten to ask. Our eyes locked, and Elena was right. Everything else faded away. The witnesses, the photographers, the elaborate ceremony that meant nothing and everything. All of it disappeared until there was just him. Just us. I reached the altar and he took my hand. His fingers trembled slightly against mine. "Hi," I whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. "You're beautiful." "So are you." The officiant cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I barely heard the words. I was too focused on Dominic, on the way his thumb traced circles on my palm, on the intensity in his gray eyes as he looked at me. "The couple has chosen to write their own vows," the officiant said. "Dominic." Dominic took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Scarlett. When we met, I told myself this was business. Just a transaction. But you..." He paused, struggling. "You've made me feel things I swore I'd never feel again. You've challenged me, infuriated me, and somehow made me want to be better than I am. I can't promise you forever. I can't promise you perfect. But I can promise you this. For as long as you'll have me, I'm yours." My eyes burned with tears. Those weren't the vows we'd rehearsed. Those weren't the safe, appropriate words meant for public consumption. Those were real. "Scarlett," the officiant prompted gently. I looked at Dominic, at the vulnerability in his eyes, and threw away the speech I'd prepared. "Dominic, you said you couldn't love me. That you didn't know how." I squeezed his hands. "But you've shown me more care, more protection, more genuine feeling in 2 weeks than some people experience in a lifetime. You're not broken. You're not incapable of love. You're just scared. And I'm scared too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe with anyone else." Someone in the audience sniffled. "Elena, probably." "The rings?" the officiant asked. James stepped forward with a bands. Simple platinum, elegant and understated. Dominic slid mine onto my finger. His hand steady now, and I did the same for him. "By the power vested in me," the officiant said, smiling, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Dominic, you may kiss your bride." For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. This was it. The moment that made it official, legal, real. Then Dominic cupped my face in both hands and kissed me like we were the only 2 people in the world. It was nothing like the kiss at the gala. Nothing like the desperate kiss in my room. This was tender and fierce all at once, a promise and a question, an ending and a beginning. When we finally broke apart, the garden erupted in applause. But I barely heard it. Because Dominic was looking at me like I'd hung the moon, and I was looking at him the same way. And somewhere in the middle of this fake wedding, something had become devastatingly real. "Mrs. Ashford," he murmured, and the name sent shivers down my spine. "Mr. Ashford," I replied, and his smile was genuine, unguarded, beautiful. We walked back down the aisle hand in hand, and I knew, whatever happened next, whatever complications awaited us, nothing would ever be the same again. Dominic. The reception was a blur. Dinner with guests whose names I couldn't remember. Toasts from people who didn't know this had started as a business arrangement. A first dance where Scarlett felt perfect in my arms, her body fitting against mine like she'd been made for me. "You surprised me," she said as we swayed to music I wasn't really hearing. "Those vows. I surprised myself." I pulled her closer. "I didn't plan to say any of that." "I'm glad you did." She looked up at me, and the trust in her eyes was terrifying. It felt real. It was real. The admission cost me something. All of it. "Dominic, we need to talk," I said quietly. "After this. About what happens next." "What happens next is we go upstairs to the bridal suite and..." She paused, color rising in her cheeks. "We maintain boundaries. Like we agreed." "Scarlett." I stopped dancing right there in the middle of the floor with everyone watching. "I don't want to maintain boundaries anymore." Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere between signing that contract and right now, this stopped being fake for me. I'm saying I want..." The words stuck in my throat. "I want this to be real." "Real," she repeated, searching my face. As in a real marriage. Real feelings. Real everything." I touched her face, not caring that we had an audience. "If you want that too." For a long moment she just stared at me. Then slowly she smiled. "I want that too." Relief flooded through me. "Then let's get out of here. We can't just leave our own reception. Watch me." I took her hand and led her off the dance floor, past confused guests, past Elena who gave me a knowing grin, past everyone who didn't matter because the only person who did was right here beside me. We made it to the bridal suite before either of us spoke again. The room was gorgeous. Candles everywhere, rose petals scattered across the massive bed, champagne chilling in a bucket. Romance novel perfect. Scarlett walked to the window, looking out over the estate grounds, her wedding dress catching the candlelight. She looked like something from a dream. "I'm nervous," she admitted without turning around. "So am I." I came up behind her, not touching, just close enough to feel her warmth. "We don't have to do anything you don't want to do." "That's not it." She turned to face me. "I'm nervous because I want this. Because it stopped being about the arrangement and started being about you. And that's terrifying." "I know." I reached up, slowly removing the pins from her hair, letting it fall around her shoulders. "I'm terrified too." "What happened with Victoria?" The question was soft. "What did she do that made you so afraid of this?" I paused, my hands still in her hair. Nobody had asked me that directly. Not even Elena. "I gave her everything," I said finally. "Opened up in ways I never had before. Made myself vulnerable. And she took that vulnerability and used it as a weapon. I came home early from a business trip, wanted to surprise her. Instead, I found her in bed with Connor, my business partner, my friend. They'd been together for months, laughing about how easy I was to manipulate. How pathetic I was for actually believing she loved me. Scarlett's hand covered her mouth. "Dominic." So I built walls. I finished removing the pins, let her hair fall free. Convinced myself I'd never let anyone close enough to hurt me again. And then you walked into that conference room with fire in your eyes and defiance on your lips, and every wall I'd built started crumbling. "I'm not Victoria," she said firmly. "I know." I cupped her face. "You're nothing like her. You're real, honest. You fight with me instead of manipulating me. You see me, the real me, and you haven't run away yet." "I'm not going to run away." She reached up, covered my hands with hers. "I'm right here. And I'm not going anywhere. Promise." The word came out rough, vulnerable. "Promise." I kissed her then, pouring everything I couldn't say into that kiss. All my fear, all my hope, all the feelings I'd tried so hard to suppress. She kissed me back just as fiercely, her hands sliding up to tangle in my hair. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, her eyes were dark with desire. "Make love to me," she whispered. "Not because it's our wedding night. Not because it's expected. But because you want to. Because this is real." "It's real," I promised. "More real than anything I've ever felt." I picked her up, she gasped, laughing, and carried her to the bed. Laid her down on rose petals that matched the color rising in her cheeks. "The dress," she said. "There are 1,000 buttons." "I'm very patient." I started with the first button, taking my time, revealing skin inch by inch. "And I have all night." By the time I'd undone half the buttons, she was breathing hard, her hands clutching at the sheets. "Dominic." "Yes." I pressed a kiss to newly exposed skin, and she shivered. "You're torturing me." "Good." Another button. Another kiss. "You've been torturing me since the moment we met." Finally, the dress fell away, leaving her in white lace that should have been illegal. I took a moment just to look at her, sprawled across the bed like an offering, flushed and beautiful and mine. "You're staring," she said, but she smiled. "I'm memorizing." I shrugged out of my jacket, started on my own buttons. Every detail, every reaction. So I never forget this moment. The moment you finally admitted you have feelings. She sat up, helping me with the buttons, her fingers trembling slightly. Or the moment we stopped pretending this was business. Both. My shirt joined her dress on the floor. Her hand splayed across my chest, and I sucked in a breath at the contact. "Scarlett, I've wanted to touch you like this for days," she admitted. "Since that night in the kitchen when you cut your hand. I wanted to." She paused, biting her lip. "Tell me." I covered her hands with mine. "Tell me what you wanted." "I wanted to know if you were real. If underneath all that ice, there was fire." Her eyes met mine. "I wanted to break down your walls and find the man you keep hidden." "You did," I said roughly. "You completely demolished every defense I had." I kissed her again, and this time there was no holding back. We fell into the bed together, a tangle of limbs and whispered words and touches that felt like coming home. When I finally made her mine, slowly, carefully, making sure she was with me every step of the way, she looked at me with such trust, such feeling that it nearly undid me. "I love you," she whispered as we moved together. "I know you can't say it back yet. But I love you, Dominic." The words should have terrified me, should have sent me running. Instead, they felt like absolution. "I'm falling," I admitted against her lips. "I don't know if it's love yet. But I'm falling, Scarlett. And I don't want to stop." "Then don't." She pulled me closer, and we lost ourselves in each other, in the feeling of skin against skin, in the promise of something neither of us had planned but both of us desperately wanted. Later, much later, we lay tangled together in sheets that smelled like roses and us, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "So," she said softly, "we're really doing this. Making this real. We're really doing this." I pressed a kiss to her hair. No more pretending. No more walls. Just us, figuring it out as we go. "That's terrifying." "I know." I pulled her closer. "But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." She lifted her head, smiled at me. "I said something similar in my vows." "Great minds." I smiled back and it felt natural. "Izzy, think we can pull this off? Actually make a marriage work when we started it as a business deal? I think if we can survive everything we've already been through in 2 weeks, we can survive anything." 2 weeks? I marveled. Has it really only been 2 weeks? Feels like longer. She traced a finger along my jaw. Feels like I've known you forever. Like this was always where we were supposed to end up. "Scarlett Morrison," I paused. "Scarlett Ashford. I need you to understand something." "What?" "I'm not good at this. Feelings. At relationships. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to hurt you without meaning to. My first instinct is still going to be to build walls and shut people out." "I know." She kissed me softly. And I'm going to call you on it every single time. I'm not going anywhere, Dominic. You're stuck with me now. Good. I rolled her beneath me, seeing her eyes go dark again. Because I'm not done with you yet. Not even close. Oh, she arched against me. What exactly did you have in mind? Convincing you that marrying me was the best decision you ever made. I kissed down her throat, felt her pulse racing under my lips. Think that will take all night? Might take longer, she gasped as my hands wandered. Might take the full 6 months. Then it's a good thing, I said against her skin, that we have all the time in the world. Scarlet. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and Dominic's arm heavy across my waist. For a moment I just lay there, feeling the warmth of his body against mine, listening to his steady breathing. He was still asleep. His face relaxed in a way I'd never seen while he was awake. This was my husband. Not my fake husband. Not my business arrangement. My actual real husband who'd made love to me last night like I was precious. Who'd whispered words against my skin that felt more like vows than anything we'd said at the ceremony. I was in so much trouble. Because somewhere in the middle of this arrangement, I'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with Dominic Ashford. And the terrifying thing, I was pretty sure he was falling too, even if he couldn't say the words yet. You're thinking too loud, he murmured, eyes still closed. I can hear your thoughts from here. Sorry. I turned in his arms, facing him. Didn't mean to wake you. I'm not complaining. He opened his eyes and they were soft, unguarded. Good morning, wife. Good morning, husband. Smiled. How do you feel? Terrified. Happy. Confused. He pulled me closer. Like I just jumped off a cliff and I'm not sure if I'm flying or falling. Same. I traced a finger over his chest, over the scars I'd discovered last night, remnants of a past he'd only hinted at. Think we made a mistake? Probably. He caught my hand, brought it to his lips. But if we did, it's the best mistake I've ever made. Dominic Ashford, are you being romantic? Don't sound so surprised. I can be romantic when properly motivated. And what's your motivation? He rolled me beneath him, settling between my legs, and I felt him already hard against me. Ooh. It's always been you. We made love again as the sun rose, slower this time, tender and thorough. And when he finally entered me, when we moved together like we'd been doing this forever, when he whispered my name like a prayer, I knew there was no going back. This was real. We were real. And whatever came next, we'd face it together. As husband and wife. For real this time. All of it. Chapter 5. Dangerous territory. Scarlet. 2 weeks of marriage, and I was living in a dream. Dominic had taken time off work, something his assistant assured me had never happened before, and we spent our days exploring London like tourists, our nights tangled in each other. He was attentive, passionate, and surprisingly playful when he let his guard down. But there were still shadows. I'd catch him staring at nothing, jaw tight, hands clenched. He'd get texts he'd delete without reading. And sometimes, late at night when he thought I was asleep, he'd slip out of bed and disappear into his office for hours. Something was wrong. He just wouldn't tell me what. You're frowning. Maya's voice pulled me back to the present. We were having lunch at a cafe near Hyde Park. Her first chance to properly interrogate me about married life. Trouble in paradise already. No. Maybe. I don't know. I pushed my salad around my plate. He's wonderful, Maya. But there's this whole part of his life he keeps locked away. I know about Victoria, about what she did. But there's more. I can feel it. Have you asked him? Every time I try, he changes the subject or distracts me. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, remembering exactly how he distracted me. He's very good at distraction. Maya grinned. I bet he is. The man looks like sex personified. Maya. What? I'm just saying if my husband looked like that. She paused, studying my face. You're in love with him. It wasn't a question. Completely, I admitted. Hopelessly. And I'm terrified he's going to break my heart. Has he said he loves you? He said he's falling. That's as close as he's gotten. I took a sip of water. But sometimes the way he looks at me, I think he does love me. He just can't say it yet. Give him time. The man spent 3 years convinced he'd never feel anything again. You can't expect him to recover overnight. Maya reached across the table, squeezed my hand. But if he hurts you, you'll destroy him. No. You've mentioned it several times. Just making sure we're clear. He sat back. So what's your gut telling you about these secrets he's keeping? That they're dangerous. That when they come out, because they always come out, they're going to change everything. I had no idea how right I was. Dominic. The text came while I was in a meeting with the trust fund administrators. We need to talk. About Scarlett. About what she deserves to know. V. Marcus Vale. I deleted it immediately, but the damage was done. He was making his move, and I was running out of time to control the narrative. Mr. Ashford. The head administrator, an older woman named Margaret, looked concerned. Is everything all right? Fine. I forced my attention back to the matter at hand. You were saying. The trust fund. She slid documents across the table. With your marriage verified, we're prepared to release Elena's medical fund. However, there's a condition we weren't previously aware of. My stomach dropped. What condition? The marriage must last at least 1 year. If you divorce before then, the funds will be frozen again. She looked apologetic. I'm sorry. Your grandfather was very specific in his will. He wanted to ensure any marriage was genuine and lasting. 1 year. Not 6 months. 1 full year. I understand, I said, though inside I was reeling. How was I going to tell Scarlett that our 6-month arrangement had just doubled? There's also the matter of the 6-month review. Margaret consulted her notes. We'll need to conduct an interview with both you and your wife. Standard procedure to verify the marriage is legitimate. Of course there was a review. My grandfather had thought of everything. When? Yes. 4 months from now. We'll schedule it closer to the date. She stood, gathering her papers. Congratulations on your marriage, Mr. Ashford. Your grandfather would have been pleased to see you settled. My grandfather would have been pleased to see me trapped, more like. I left the meeting and immediately called my lawyer. We have a problem. How big of a problem? David had been handling my affairs for years. He knew exactly how complicated this situation was. The trust fund requires a year-long marriage, not 6 months. And there's going to be a review to verify it's legitimate. David was quiet for a moment. Does Scarlett know? Not yet. Dominic. I know. I'll tell her tonight. I ran a hand through my hair. How binding is the divorce clause in our prenup? Very. She agreed to 6 months. If you're asking her to extend that to a year, you'll need to renegotiate. Probably offer more money. More money. Like Scarlett was something I could just buy more time with. Except she wasn't. Not anymore. Somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being a business arrangement and started being my wife. My actual wife. The woman I fell asleep next to and woke up with. The woman whose laugh made me smile. The woman I was falling in love with even though it terrified me. I'll handle it, I told David. Just draw up an amendment to the contract. Double the payout if she agrees to the extra 6 months. Dominic, are you sure that's? Do it. I hung up before he could finish. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Tick-tock, Ashford. How long before she finds out the real reason you married her? The real reason you needed a wife? Think she'll still look at you the same way when she knows the truth? I stared at the message, ice flooding my veins. Marcus knew something. Something beyond the trust fund, beyond Victoria. He knew about Connor. Scarlett. I came home to find Dominic in his office, staring at his computer screen with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure, undiluted fury. Hey! I knocked softly on the doorframe. Everything okay? He looked up, and for a second I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes before he controlled it. Fine. How was lunch with Maya? Good. She likes you, by the way. Says you're sex personified. I walked into the office, trying to lighten the mood. Her words, not mine. Smart woman. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. I sat on the edge of his desk, studying him. What's wrong? And don't say nothing. I can see it all over your face. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he closed his laptop and stood, walking to the window. We need to talk. Those 4 words sent dread through me. That's never good. The trust fund administrators contacted me today. He kept his back to me. There's a condition I wasn't aware of. The marriage has to last a full year, not 6 months. I processed that. So our arrangement needs to be extended. 6 more months. He finally turned to face me. I'll double your payout. 20 million instead of 10. You'll be set for life, Scarlett. You could do anything you want. Stop. I stood, anger rising. You think I care about the money now? Don't you? His voice was cold, defensive. That's why you agreed to this in the first place. That's why I agreed 2 weeks ago. Before the wedding. Before. I gestured helplessly. Before everything changed. Nothing's changed. But even he didn't sound convinced. This is still an arrangement. Just a longer one. You're lying. I crossed to him, forced him to look at me. To me or to yourself, I'm not sure. But you're lying. Because if nothing's changed, why did you make love to me last night and whisper that you were falling? Why did you spend the last 2 weeks acting like a real husband instead of a business partner? Scarlett. No. You don't get to shut down now. I was shaking with anger and hurt. You don't get to act like what we have doesn't matter just because you're scared. I'm not scared, he said, but his voice cracked on the last word. Yes, you are. You're terrified that this is real. That what we have could actually work. And instead of dealing with that, you're retreating back into the safety of calling this an arrangement. I felt tears burning. But I'm not Victoria, Dominic. I'm not going to hurt you. You don't know that. His hands clenched at his sides. Nobody knows that until they do. So what? You're just going to keep me at arm's length for the next year. Use money to keep me from getting too close. I'm protecting myself. You're being a coward. The words hung between us, sharp and painful. Dominic's face went white, then red. Get out, he said quietly. What? Get out. He turned away from me. I have work to do. I stared at his back, at the rigid line of his shoulders, and felt something crack in my chest. Fine. But we're not done with this conversation. I left his office, slamming the door behind me. In our bedroom, because it was our bedroom now, we'd stopped pretending otherwise. I paced like a caged animal. How dare he? How dare he reduce what we had to a business transaction? How dare he act like money could fix everything? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Ashford. Smooth, cultured voice. This is Marcus Vale. I believe we met at the gala. Every muscle in my body tensed. What do you want? To talk. About your husband. About things he's not telling you. Things you deserve to know. I'm not interested in. Connor Mitchell. Does that name mean anything to you? Froze. Who? Dominic's former business partner. The one who slept with Victoria. The one Dominic destroyed professionally, personally, completely. The one who killed himself 6 months ago because Dominic made sure he'd never work again. The world tilted. You're lying. Am I? Ask your husband. Ask him what really happened after he found Victoria with Connor. Ask him how far he went for revenge. Vale's voice was poisonous honey. Ask him if he feels any guilt for driving a man to suicide. Why are you telling me this? My voice was barely a whisper. Because you should know who you married. Because Dominic Ashford is not the man you think he is. And because when you inevitably leave him, And you will leave him once you know the truth. I'll be here. He paused. Think about it, Mrs. Ashford. Do you really know your husband at all? He hung up before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, mind racing. It couldn't be true. Dominic wouldn't. Except I didn't really know, did I? He'd kept so much from me. So many secrets, so many shadows in his past. I had to know the truth. I went to his office, pushed open the door without knocking. He looked up surprised. Who's Connor Mitchell? He asked. All the color drained from his face. Where did you hear that name? Marcus Vale just called me. He said Connor was your business partner. That you destroyed him after the affair with Victoria. That he killed himself because of what you did to him. I took a step closer. Is it true? Dominic stood slowly. His expression unreadable. How much did he tell you? Enough. I want to hear it from you. All of it. For a long moment he just stared at me. Then he walked to his bar cart, poured himself a scotch, and drank it in one swallow. Yes, he said finally. I destroyed Connor Mitchell. After I found him with Victoria, I used every connection I had to ruin him. Got him blacklisted from every major company. Froze his assets. Made sure nobody would touch him with a 10-foot pole. His hands clenched around the empty glass. I wanted him to suffer the way I was suffering. And he killed himself, I said, feeling sick. 6 months later. Drove his car off a bridge. Dominic's voice was flat, emotionless. The police ruled it an accident, but I knew better. Did you feel any guilt? The question came out harsh. Did you care at all that a man was dead because of you? No. He met my eyes and they were cold. I felt nothing. Because feeling nothing was easier than feeling everything. I took a step back, suddenly unsure of the man in front of me. What else haven't you told me? What other secrets are you keeping? Does it matter? He set down his glass. You've already decided who I am. I can see it in your eyes. I'm the monster, the villain. The man who drove someone to suicide. I don't know what you are, I said honestly. Because every time I think I understand you, you show me another side. Another secret. How am I supposed to build a life with someone I don't really know? You're not. His voice was harsh. That's the point, Scarlett. This was always temporary. 6 months, 1 year, it doesn't matter. Eventually you'll leave. Everyone does. Stop it. I crossed to him, grabbed his arms. Stop pushing me away. I'm not pushing you away. I'm showing you who I really am. He pulled free. And now that you've seen it, now that you know what I'm capable of, you get to decide. Stay and pretend you can love a man like me. Or leave and admit this was a mistake from the beginning. Dominic. Choose, Scarlett. His eyes were hard, challenging. But choose honestly. I stared at him, at the man I'd married. The man I'd fallen in love with. The man who was now a stranger. Marcus Vale's words echoed in my head. Do you really know your husband at all? I need time, I said finally. I need to think. Take all the time you need. He turned away, effectively dismissing me. I'll be here. Working. Like always. I left his office feeling like I was drowning. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed where we'd made love just last night, and tried to process everything. Dominic had destroyed a man. Driven him to suicide. Felt nothing. But he'd also held me through nightmares. Made me laugh. Looked at me like I was his whole world. Which version was real? Or were they both real, two sides of the same complicated, damaged man? My phone buzzed. Text from Maya. How did it go? Did you ask him about the secrets? I stared at the message, then typed back. Found out. And now I don't know what to do. Her response was immediate. Come over. You shouldn't be alone. She was right. I couldn't stay here, not with Dominic just down the hall, not with all these emotions churning inside me. I grabbed my coat and bag, scribbled a note. Staying at Maya's tonight. Need space. And left it on the bed. As I walked out of the penthouse, I heard his office door open. "Scarlett." His voice was rough, uncertain. "Where are you going?" I didn't turn around. "Away. I need to think, Dominic. And I can't do that here." "Don't go." 2 words, barely audible. "Please." I paused at the elevator, finger hovering over the button. Part of me wanted to turn back. To run to him and tell him it didn't matter, that I loved him anyway. But the other part, the part that had just learned my husband was capable of destroying someone so completely, needed distance. "I'll be back," I said without looking at him. "I just need time." The elevator doors closed before he could respond, and I rode down 40 floors with tears streaming down my face. Because I'd fallen in love with Dominic Ashford. But I was no longer sure who Dominic Ashford really was. Dominic. I stood in the hallway long after the elevator doors closed, long after the sound of them faded, staring at nothing. She was gone. I'd known this would happen eventually. Known that once she saw the real me, the broken, vengeful, empty man beneath the expensive suits, she'd leave. They all did. But knowing it and experiencing it were 2 different things. I walked back to my office, poured another scotch, and pulled up the file I'd been trying to delete all day. Connor Mitchell's obituary. 6 months old, but it might as well have been yesterday. Connor Mitchell, 33, died in a single-car accident. He is survived by his mother, Patricia, and sister, Amy. No mention of what had driven him to that bridge. No mention of me. But I knew. God, I knew. I'd wanted him to suffer. Wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain I'd felt. And I'd succeeded so completely that he'd chosen death over living with what I'd done to him. And I'd felt nothing. Till now. Until Scarlett looked at me with horror and disappointment and something that might have been fear. And suddenly I felt everything all at once. Guilt. Shame. Self-hatred. And underneath it all, terror that I'd just lost the only good thing in my life. My phone rang. "Lena. Dom. Are you okay? You sound weird." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're not fine. What happened?" She knew me too well. "Is it Scarlett? She found out about Connor." The words came out flat. "Marcus told her. She left." Elena was quiet for a moment. "Did you tell her everything? Your side of the story?" "There is no my side. I destroyed him. He killed himself. Those are facts. You didn't make him drive off that bridge, Dom. He made that choice. Because I took away every other choice he had." I drained my glass. "I'm exactly what everyone thinks I am. Monster. And now Scarlett knows it too. You're not a monster. You're a man who was hurt and lashed out. There's a difference. Is there?" I laughed bitterly. Because from where I'm sitting, the result is the same. A man is dead, and my wife is so disgusted by me she can't even be in the same building. Give her time, Dom. If she loves you, and I think she does, she'll come back. And if she doesn't, Elena's voice was soft, then you deal with it. Like you deal with everything. But don't give up on her yet. Don't give up on yourself. After we hung up, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by expensive things that meant nothing, and realized something. I loved her. I loved Scarlett. Completely. Irrevocably. And not because of the arrangement or the convenience or the way she looked in a wedding dress. I loved her because she challenged me. Because she saw through my walls. Because she made me want to be better than I was. And I'd just driven her away because I was too damaged to know how to hold on to something good. I picked up my phone, typed out a text. Love you. I should have said it before. I should have said it every day since the wedding. Come home. Please. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Because love wasn't enough to fix what I'd broken. Nothing was. Scarlett. Maya's apartment was warm and safe, and nothing like the cold penthouse I'd just left. Talk, she said, handing me tea and a blanket. Tell me everything. So I did. The trust fund. The extended arrangement. Marcus Vale's phone call. Connor Mitchell. All of it poured out in a messy, emotional rush. When I finished, Maya was quiet for a long time. Okay, she said finally. That's a lot. That's an understatement. But here's the thing. She turned to face me fully. Do you love him? That's not the point. It's exactly the point. Because if you don't love him, then leave. Take your money and run. But if you do love him, she paused. Then you need to decide if you can love all of him. Including the dark parts. Including the parts that did terrible things. How can I love someone who drove a man to suicide? I don't know. That's something only you can answer. Maya squeezed my hand. But I'll tell you what I saw at your wedding. I saw a man who looked at you like you were his salvation. Like you were the only good thing in his life. And I saw you look at him the same way. I wiped at my tears. He won't even admit he loves me. Because he's scared. Because the last time he loved someone, she destroyed him. Maya's voice was gentle. I'm not excusing what he did to Connor. That was wrong. But I'm saying people do terrible things when they're in pain. And Dominic was in a lot of pain. So what do? You decide what you can live with. And what you can't. She pulled me into a hug. But whatever you decide, make sure it's what you really want. Not what you think you should want. I stayed at Maya's that night, lying awake on her couch, staring at the ceiling. My phone sat on the coffee table, silent. No calls from Dominic. No text. Maybe that was my answer. Maybe his silence meant he was relieved I'd left. Maybe. My phone lit up. A notification from Instagram. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. It was a photo of Connor Mitchell's grave. Posted by his sister Amy. The caption read, 6 months without you. Miss you every day, big brother. I hope wherever you are, you're at peace. I stared at the photo, at the dates on the headstone, and felt something shift inside me. Connor Mitchell had been a person. With a family. With a sister who missed him. He wasn't just a name in Dominic's past. He'd been real. And Dominic had taken him away from them. But Dominic had also been real. Had been hurt and betrayed and broken. Had lashed out in ways that were unforgivable but understandable. Which mattered more? The pain he'd caused. Or the pain that had caused him to act? I didn't have an answer. But I knew I couldn't stay away forever. Had to go back. Had to face him. Had to decide if what we had was worth fighting for. Or if this was where our story ended. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow I'd go home. And tomorrow, I'd figure out if the man I'd married was someone I could truly spend a year with. Or a lifetime. Chapter 6. Breaking Point. Scarlett. I came home to find the penthouse dark and silent. It was barely 9 in the morning, but somehow the space felt abandoned. Me. Like Dominic had already accepted that I wasn't coming back. Dominic! Called out, setting down my bag. No answer. I walked down the hallway, checking rooms. His bedroom was untouched. He hadn't slept there last night. The kitchen was pristine, no evidence of breakfast or coffee. And his office door was closed. I knocked softly. Dominic, are you in there? Nothing. I tried the handle. Dominic, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I pressed my palm against the door. Please, let me in. For a long moment there was only silence. Then I heard movement, the sound of a lock clicking, and the door opened. He looked terrible. Still in yesterday's clothes, wrinkled and disheveled. Hair a mess. Eyes bloodshot and shadowed. An empty Scotch bottle on his desk, and another half-empty one in his hand. You came back, he said, his voice rough. I said I would. I stepped into the office, closing the door behind me. Have you slept? No. He took a drink straight from the bottle. Have you? Not much. I crossed to him, gently taking the bottle from his hands. When's the last time you ate? I don't remember. He didn't resist when I set the bottle aside. Why are you here, Scarlett? If it's to collect your things. It's not. I cupped his face, forced him to look at me. I came back because I needed to see you. Talk to you. To figure out what the hell we're doing. I told you what I am. He tried to pull away, but I held firm. I showed you the monster and you left. You were right to leave. Stop it. My voice was sharp. Stop deciding how I feel. Stop assuming you know what I want. Then tell me. His hands came up to cover mine. Tell me what you want because I have no idea anymore. I want the truth. All of it. I dropped my hands, stepped back. Not the version you think will push me away. Not the self-flagellation. The actual truth about Connor. About Victoria. About why you really needed this marriage. He studied me for a long moment. Then he sank into his desk chair, gesturing to the one across from him. Sit. This is going to take a while. I sat and he began. Victoria and I met 5 years ago. She was everything I thought I wanted. Beautiful, cultured, from the right family. I was building my empire, and she seemed like the perfect partner for that. He stared at his hands. I proposed after a year. Started planning a life with her. And I brought Connor into the business because he was my best friend. The brother I never had. And they betrayed you, I said softly. I came home 3 days before our wedding. Wanted to surprise Victoria with the honeymoon tickets I'd just picked up. Instead, he broke off, jaw clenching. I heard them before I saw them. Laughing. Talking about me. About how easy I was to manipulate. How pathetic I was for believing anyone could actually love me for me rather than my money. My heart cracked. Dominic. I confronted them. Victoria didn't even have the decency to be ashamed. She said she was doing me a favor, teaching me that love was a weakness I couldn't afford. That in our world, everything was transactional. He met my eyes. So I made it transactional. I took everything from Connor. His job, his reputation, his future. I wanted him to understand what it felt like to lose everything. And 6 months later he was dead. Yes. The word was barely a whisper. His sister called me. Screaming, crying, asking why. Telling me it was my fault. That Connor had been depressed, suicidal, and instead of helping him, I'd pushed him over the edge. What did you say to her? Nothing. Hung up. Because she was right. He stood pacing. I did push him over the edge. And for 3 years I convinced myself I didn't care. That he deserved it. That I'd been justified. And now I'm married to a woman who makes me feel everything I swore I'd never feel again. And I realized, I'm terrified of becoming that man again. The one who destroys people when they hurt him. He stopped in front of me. What if I hurt you, Scarlett? What if you do something, intentionally or not, and I lash out the way I did with Connor? I stood, closing the distance between us. You're not going to. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I took his hands. Because you're not that man anymore. The fact that you feel guilty about Connor, that's proof. The old Dominic, the one who felt nothing. He wouldn't have cared that I left. He wouldn't have spent the night drinking in his office, torturing himself. Maybe I'm just good at pretending. No. I shook my head. You're terrible at pretending. It's one of the things I love about you. You can't hide how you feel, not from me. His breath caught. You still love me. After everything I told you. I love you because of everything you told me. I moved closer. You're not perfect, Dominic. You've done terrible things. But you're also trying to be better. And that's all I can ask. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I smiled despite the tears threatening. But you're stuck with me anyway. For at least a year, remember. About that. He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. I don't want just a year. I don't want this to end. Ever. Dominic. I love you. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them back too long. I'm in love with you, Scarlett. Completely. Desperately. And I know I should have said it before. I know I've been a coward. Kissed him. Cut off his rambling with my lips on his, pouring everything I felt into that kiss. Relief. Love. Forgiveness. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I smiled. Say it again. I love you. He kissed my forehead. I love you. My nose. I love you. My lips soft and tender. I love you, Scarlett Ashford. And I'm never letting you go. Good. I pulled him down to me. Because I love you too. Even when you're difficult. Even when you're scared. Even when you push me away. I'm sorry, he whispered against my hair. For pushing you away. For not being honest. Stop apologizing and take me to bed. I looked up at him. We have a lot of making up to do. His eyes darkened. Scarlett. Now, Dominic. He didn't need to be told twice. He picked me up, I gasped laughing, and carried me down the hall to our bedroom. Laid me down on sheets that still smelled like us, like the last time we'd been happy before everything fell apart. I missed you, he said, slowly unbuttoning my shirt. One night, and I missed you like I'd lost a limb. I missed you too. I helped him with the buttons, impatient. I hated sleeping without you. Never again. He tossed my shirt aside, started on my jeans. From now on we talk. We fight. We work through things. But we don't leave. Promise. I arched up so he could pull off my jeans. Promise. He stripped off his own clothes with quick efficiency, then covered my body with his. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve you. You already do. I pulled him down for another kiss. But I'm not going to stop you from trying. We made love slowly, tenderly, like we were rediscovering each other. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss was forgiveness. Every whispered, I love you, was a vow more binding than the ones we'd said at our wedding. And when we finally lay tangled together, sweaty and satisfied and whole again, I knew, whatever came next, we'd face it together. Dominic. I woke up hours later to find Scarlett propped up on one elbow, watching me sleep. Creepy, I murmured, pulling her closer. You snore. She kissed my chest. It's adorable. I do not snore. You absolutely do. Like a chainsaw. She laughed when I tickled her in retaliation. Stop. Okay, you don't snore. I rolled her beneath me, pinning her hands above her head. Take it back. Never. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. What are you going to do about it? This. I kissed down her throat, feeling her pulse race under my lips. And this. My mouth moved lower and she gasped. And this. Dominic. Her protest turned into a moan. We need to, oh God, we need to talk about. Later. Kissed lower still. We'll talk later. Right now I'm busy. Busy with what? I looked up at her, saw the desire and love in her eyes and smiled. Convincing my wife that leaving me is never an option again. I think. She broke off as I did something that made her arch off the bed. I think you're succeeding. Much later, we finally made it to the kitchen. I cooked while Scarlett perched on the counter in one of my shirts, stealing bacon and making me laugh with stories about Maya's reaction to everything. She threatened to destroy you, Scarlett said, grinning. Multiple times. I like her. I plated eggs and handed her a fork. She's protective. You need people like that. I have you now. She took a bite. You're pretty protective. Understatement. I moved between her legs, resting my hands on her thighs. Anyone who tries to hurt you will have to go through me first. My hero. But she said it with affection, not mockery. Oh. We should probably talk about the elephant in the room. Which elephant? There are several. Marcus Vale. Her expression grew serious. Why is he targeting you? What does he want? I sighed, knowing this conversation was inevitable. 5 years ago, Marcus and I were competing for the same property deal. A massive development in Canary Wharf. Whoever got it would essentially control the entire area. Let me guess. You got it. I got it. And Marcus lost everything. His investors pulled out. His company nearly went bankrupt. He spent 5 years rebuilding, but he's never forgiven me. I ran a hand through my hair. He blames me for ruining his life. And now he's trying to return the favor. By telling me about Connor. That's just the beginning. I pulled out my phone, showed her the threatening texts. He's been escalating. That hints that he knows things that could destroy me. Scarlett read through the messages, her expression growing darker. Dominic, this is serious. He's obsessed. I know. I've had my security team looking into him, but my phone rang, cutting me off. Unknown number. Hang on. Answered. Ashford. Mr. Ashford. A woman's voice, shaking with emotion. This is Amy Mitchell, Connor's sister. My blood ran cold. Amy. I need to meet with you. Today. It's about my brother. A pause. And about Marcus Vale. I looked at Scarlett, who was watching me with concern. What about Marcus Vale? He's been using me. Using Connor's death to get to you. And I just found out something that changes everything. Her voice broke. Please. I need to tell you the truth. The whole truth. About what really happened to Connor. My heart was pounding. Where do you want to meet? She gave me an address. A cafe in Shoreditch. 1 hour. I'll be there, I said and hung up. What was that about? Scarlett asked. Connor's sister wants to meet. She says Marcus has been using her. That there's more to Connor's death than I knew. I looked at her. Will you come with me? Of course. She slid off the counter, squeezed my hand. Whatever this is, we face it together. Remember. Together. I pulled her close, held her tight. I like the sound of that. Scarlett. The cafe was small, cozy, and nearly empty. Amy Mitchell sat in the corner booth, clutching a coffee cup like it was a lifeline. She looked like Connor, same dark hair, same blue eyes. But where Connor had been confident and outgoing from what little I'd learned about him, Amy looked haunted, tired, like grief had carved out everything soft inside her. Thank you for coming, she said as we sat down across from her. Her eyes fixed on me. You must be Scarlett. I've seen pictures. You're beautiful. Thank you, I said, unsure how to respond. I'm so sorry for your loss. Are you? She looked at Dominic. Or is that just what people say? Amy. Dominic started. No. Me talk. I've been holding this in for months, and I need to say it. She took a shaky breath. Marcus Vale approached me 2 months after Connor died. Said he was a friend of my brother's. That he wanted to help me get justice. Justice? Dominic repeated flatly. Against you. For what you did to Connor. Amy's hands trembled. I was angry. Devastated. I blamed you for everything. So when Marcus said he had a plan to make you suffer the way Connor suffered, I agreed to help. I felt Dominic tense beside me. What kind of plan? He wanted information. About Connor's relationship with you. About the affair. About your business dealings. He said he was going to expose you publicly. Ruin you the way you ruined Connor. She wiped at her eyes. And I gave him everything. Letters, emails, photos. Anything that would make you look bad. Why are you telling us this now? Asked gently. Because I found something. In Connor's things. She pulled out a worn notebook, slid it across the table. His journal. From the months before he died. Dominic stared at it like it was a snake. I don't. Read it. Amy pushed it closer. Please. You need to know the truth. With shaking hands, Dominic opened the notebook. I leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. Connor's handwriting was messy, rushed, desperate. Victoria approached me about the affair. Said Dominic was too controlling, too obsessed with work. That she needed someone who would pay attention to her. I was weak. Said yes. I knew it was wrong. Knew I was betraying my best friend. But Victoria was persuasive. And I was lonely. The night Dominic caught us, I've never seen him like that. So cold. So broken. I deserved his anger. I deserved everything he did to me after. But Victoria, she laughed. Like it was all a game to her. Dominic flipped pages. His face growing paler with each entry. Marcus Vale offered me a job today. Said he knew what Dominic did. That he could help me rebuild. But the price, I have to testify against Dominic. Destroy his reputation. Can't do it. No matter what happened, he was my friend. I refused Marcus. He got angry. Said I'd regret it. That Dominic had turned me into a coward. I don't know what to do anymore. Everything I touch turns to ash. Maybe Dominic was right. Maybe I am worthless. The last entry was dated the day before Connor died. I'm tired. So tired. Victoria called today. Said she was bored. That the whole thing with Dominic had been a test to see how far she could push him. That Connor and I were just pawns in her game. I ruined my life for a woman who never cared. I destroyed my friendship with Dominic for nothing. Called Dominic today. Left a voicemail. Tried to apologize. To explain. He didn't call back. Maybe it's better this way. Maybe everyone would be better off if I just disappeared. Sorry, Amy. Sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dominic. I'm just sorry. Dominic closed the notebook with shaking hands. He called me. What? Me asked. The day before he died. I got a voicemail from Connor. I deleted it without listening. His voice cracked. I was still so angry. I didn't want to hear his excuses. So I deleted it. It wasn't your fault, Amy said, tears streaming down her face. I blamed you for years. But reading that, seeing how Victoria manipulated both of you, how Marcus pushed Connor to testify, how everything just spiraled, she broke off sobbing. It wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. Dominic stood abruptly. He reached out. He tried to apologize. And I was too proud, too angry to listen. If I just answered that call. You don't know that. I grabbed his hand. You don't know what would have happened. I know I failed him. He pulled away, pacing. I know I was so focused on revenge that I didn't see he was drowning. I could have helped him. Instead, I pushed him under. Mr. Ashford. Amy stood as well. I didn't come here to make you feel worse. I came because you deserve to know the truth. And because Marcus is planning something. Something big. That got his attention. What kind of something? He's been talking to journalists. Spinning a story about how you systematically destroyed Connor. How you're doing the same thing to other business rivals. He has documents, some real, some fabricated, that make you look like a monster. She pulled out her phone, showed us screenshots of emails. He's planning to release everything next week. To ruin you publicly the way you ruined Connor privately. Felt sick. Can he do that? Some of it is true. Dominic's voice was flat. I did destroy Connor's career. The rest, I'd have to see the documents to know what's fabricated. I can help. Amy's voice was determined. I know where Marcus keeps his files. I know his schedule. If we act fast, we can stop this before it goes public. Why would you help me? Dominic asked. After everything. Because Connor would have wanted me to. She smiled sadly. Because my brother made mistakes but he loved you. Considered you family. And because. She looked between us. Marcus Vale is not a good man. He's using Connor's death to fuel his own vendetta. And that's not justice. That's just cruelty. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Thank you. For the journal. For the warning. For everything. Amy shook his hand. I'm sorry. For helping Marcus. For blaming you. For. Don't. Dominic's voice was gentle. You have nothing to apologize for. You lost your brother. You were grieving. Marcus took advantage of that. So did Victoria, I added. She manipulated both Connor and Dominic. Used them against each other. She's as much to blame for what happened as anyone. Where is she now? Me asked. Married to a hedge fund manager. Living in New York. Probably destroying someone else's life. Dominic's voice was bitter. But that's not our problem anymore. No. I took his hand, threaded our fingers together. Our problem is Marcus. And we're going to stop him. Dominic. We spent the next 6 hours planning. Amy had detailed information about Marcus's schedule. his security, his methods. Between that and my own resources, we came up with a plan. It was risky, possibly illegal, definitely dangerous. Perfect. Are you sure about this? I asked Scarlett as we drove home. If this goes wrong, it could blow back on us. I'm sure. She looked determined. Marcus has been terrorizing you for months, using Connor's death as a weapon. It ends now. I love you, I said, not for the first time that day. I love you too. She leaned over, kissed my cheek. Now let's go take down a villain. Back at the penthouse, I made calls. To my security team. To my lawyer. To people who owed me favors and people I'd helped over the years. By midnight, everything was in place. Tomorrow, I told Scarlett as we lay in bed, holding each other. Tomorrow we end this. Nervous? She asked. Terrified. I pulled her closer. But I'm ready. Ready to stop letting my past control me. Ready to stop being afraid. Because of me. She looked up, smiling. Because of you. I kissed her softly. You make me brave, Scarlett. You make me want to be better. You are better. She traced a finger along my jaw. You're good, Dominic. Flawed and complicated and sometimes infuriating, but good. I'm not sure good men destroy their enemies. Maybe not. He kissed me. But good men protect the people they love. And that's what you're doing tomorrow. Protecting us. Protecting what we've built. What have we built? I asked, curious. A life. She smiled. A real marriage. Future. And I'll be damned if I let Marcus Vale take that away from us. Have I mentioned I love you? Once or twice. She rolled on top of me, straddling my hips. But feel free to show me again. So I did. I showed her with my hands, my mouth, my body how much she meant to me. How she changed everything. How I'd burn the world down before I let anyone hurt her. And as we moved together, as we whispered promises and confessions, as we loved each other like tomorrow might never come, I knew. Whatever happened with Marcus, whatever the fallout, whatever came next, we'd survive it. 'Cause we had each other. And that was enough. That was everything. Chapter 7, The Storm. Scarlett. The plan was simple. Too simple, maybe. Amy would get us into Marcus Vale's office building using her access card. He'd given it to her months ago as part of his manipulation. We'd retrieve the fabricated documents from his private server. My tech guy would erase them. And we'd be out before Marcus even knew we were there. Simple. Except nothing about this felt simple as I stood in the lobby of Vale Industries at 2 a.m, wearing all black, my heart pounding so hard I was sure security could hear it. Relax, Dominic murmured, his hand warm on the small of my back. You look like you're about to rob a bank. We're basically robbing a bank, I hissed back. Technically, we're retrieving stolen property. His eyes gleamed with something that might have been excitement. There's a difference. Tell that to the judge when we get arrested. We're not going to get arrested. He kissed my temple. Trust me. Amy swiped her card at the elevator, and the doors opened with a soft ding that sounded deafening in the silent lobby. We stepped inside along with James, who'd insisted on coming as backup, and Marcus's former IT guy, a nervous 20-something named Tyler who Dominic had paid handsomely for his cooperation. 4th floor, Amy said quietly. His private office is at the end of the hall. He keeps everything on a server in his desk. How do you know all this? Tyler asked. He showed me. Bragged about how he had enough evidence to destroy Dominic Ashford. Her voice was bitter. He thought I'd be impressed. The elevator doors opened onto a dark hallway. Motion sensor lights flickered on as we walked, our footsteps muffled by thick carpet. Everything about Vale Industries screamed new money trying to look like old money, expensive but tasteless. Here. Amy stopped in front of an ornate door. This is it. Dominic tried the handle. Locked, of course. He pulled out a small toolkit. Where the hell had he gotten that? And within 30 seconds the lock clicked open. That's terrifying, I said. You know that's terrifying, right? I have many skills. He grinned. Most of them questionable. Inside Marcus's office was exactly what I expected. Oversized desk. Expensive art that looked like it had been chosen by a decorator rather than a collector. And floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames. The server, Dominic asked Tyler, should be in the desk. Most private servers are. Tyler crossed to it, started pulling open drawers. Here. Got it. He pulled out a small black box, started connecting cables to his laptop. The screen filled with files and folders, hundreds of them. This is going to take time, Tyler said. These are heavily encrypted. How much time? James asked, standing guard by the door. 20 minutes. Maybe 30. I looked at Dominic. That's a long time to be in enemy territory. We don't have a choice. His jaw was set. We need those files deleted. All of them. So we waited. Tyler's fingers flew over the keyboard, lines of code scrolling across the screen. Amy paced by the windows, looking out at the city. James watched the hallway through the crack in the door. And Dominic stood beside me, his hand finding mine in the darkness. Thank you, he said quietly. For being here. For helping. Where else would I be? I squeezed his hand. This is what marriage is, right? Breaking and entering together. He laughed softly. I don't think that's in the traditional vows. Maybe it should be. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, and in mild felonies. Scarlett Ashford, he paused. Did you hear that? We all froze. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful. Shit, James whispered. Someone's coming. How much longer? Dominic asked Tyler urgently. 10 minutes. Maybe less if. We don't have 10 minutes. Dominic looked around, calculating. Amy, Scarlett, hide. Behind the desk. James with me. Tyler, keep working but kill the screen if they come in. What are you going to do? I asked, even as Dominic pushed me toward the desk. Improvise. He kissed me quickly. Trust me. Amy and I crouched behind the massive desk just as the office door opened and the lights flicked on. Well. Marcus Vale's voice sent ice through my veins. Dominic Ashford. Breaking into my office. How very predictable. Marcus. Dominic's voice was calm, controlled. Funny finding you here at 2 in the morning. It's my building. I can be here whenever I want. Footsteps moved closer. The question is, what are you doing here? Would you believe I was in the neighborhood? No. Where's your wife, Dominic? And Amy? I know they're here. I saw you all on the security cameras. My heart stopped. Security cameras. Of course there were security cameras. They're waiting in the car, Dominic lied smoothly. This is between you and me. Is it? Marcus laughed. 'Cause it seems like you brought quite the team. Your driver, my former IT guy, my former assistant. Planning a little corporate espionage. Planning to stop you from destroying my life with fabricated evidence. Fabricated. Marcus's voice rose. Everything I have on you is real, Ashford. Your systematic destruction of Connor Mitchell. Your ruthless business practices. Your complete lack of human empathy. Some of it's real, Dominic agreed. And some of it you made up. We both know it. Prove it. I don't have to. Because you're not releasing anything. Oh, Marcus sounded amused. And why is that? Because I know about Patricia. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. You don't know anything, Marcus said finally, but his voice had changed. Uncertain. Your mother, Patricia Vale. Currently residing in a psychiatric facility in Scotland, being treated for early-onset Alzheimer's. Costing you approximately £50,000 a month. Dominic's voice was quiet but deadly. Money you've been embezzling from your own company to pay for. I glanced at Amy, who looked as shocked as I felt. This wasn't part of the plan. How did you? I have people too, Marcus. People who dig up secrets. People who know things. Dominic moved closer. I could tell from the sound of his footsteps. You want to destroy me? Fine. Release your files. But I'll release mine. Every investor, every board member will know you've been stealing from your own company. You'll lose everything. Again. You bastard, Marcus breathed. I learned from the best. Dominic's voice hardened. But here's the thing, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hurt your mother or destroy your company. I just want you to leave me and my wife alone. After what you did to Connor. Connor made his own choices. Dominic's control snapped. I'm not innocent. I destroyed his career, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I didn't make him drive off that bridge. Victoria did. You did. Everyone who used him and manipulated him and pushed him to the edge. We all did that. So you feel guilty now. How convenient. I feel guilty every day. Dominic's voice cracked. I feel guilty every time I look at his sister. Every time I think about that voicemail I deleted. Every time I remember he was my friend before he was my enemy. But feeling guilty doesn't bring him back. And destroying each other doesn't honor his memory. The office was silent for a long moment. What do you want? Marcus finally asked. Delete your files. All of them. The real ones and the fake ones. Walk away. And I'll do the same. We both move on with our lives. And your wife. What does she get out of this? She gets to keep her husband out of prison, I said, standing up from behind the desk. Me rose beside me. And you get to keep your mother's care funded. Seems like a fair trade. Marcus stared at me, then at Dominic. You married a ballsy one, Ashford. I'll give you that. The ballsiest, Dominic agreed, and I heard the pride in his voice. Fine. Marcus walked to his desk, pushed Tyler aside and started typing. I'm deleting the files. But Ashford, if you ever come after me again, if you ever threaten my mother's care, I won't. As long as you leave us alone. Marcus hit a final key with more force than necessary. Done. Happy. Ecstatic. Dominic took my hand. Come on. We're leaving. We walked toward the door, all of us together, when Marcus spoke again. Dominic. His voice was different now. Tired. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About Connor. About using his death to get to you. It was wrong. Dominic paused. Yeah. It was. Do you think, Marcus broke off, do you think he'd forgive us? For all of this? I don't know, Dominic said honestly. But I think he'd want us to try to do better. To be better. And that's all we can do. We left Marcus standing in his office, surrounded by expensive things that meant nothing, and I knew, this chapter was finally closed. Dominic. We were almost home when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. My father's estate in the Cotswolds. Ashford, I answered. Mr. Ashford, this is Janet from Morrison Hotels. The woman's voice was shaking. I'm calling about your father-in-law. He's been taken to hospital. It's serious. Scarlett went rigid beside me. What happened? She demanded, loud enough for Janet to hear. Heart attack. The hotel. He collapsed during a meeting. Janet was crying now. Mrs. Morrison asked me to call you. She said Scarlett wasn't answering her phone. Scarlett pulled out her phone, face going white. It died. I forgot to charge it before. She looked at me, panicked. We have to go. Now. Which hospital? Asked Janet. Royal London. They're taking him to the cardiac unit. We'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up, already telling James to change direction. Royal London. Fast. The drive was a blur. Scarlett sat beside me, silent and shaking. I held her hand, tried to offer comfort, but what could I say? Her father, the man who'd sold her into this arrangement, was dying. He can't die, she whispered. Not now. Not when we haven't. She broke off. I'm still so angry with him. For what he did. For selling me. But he's still my father. I know. I pulled her close. And we're going to get there in time. You'll get to talk to him. What if we don't? What if the last conversation I had with him was me being angry? Then we deal with it. Together. Like everything else. We reached the hospital in 15 minutes. James definitely broke several traffic laws, and ran through the emergency entrance. The cardiac unit was on the 3rd floor, and we took the stairs because the elevator was too slow. Scarlett's mother was in the waiting room, pale and drawn. When she saw us, she burst into tears. Scarlett. Thank God. She pulled Scarlett into her arms. He's in surgery. They're trying to clear the blockage. The doctors said it's bad. How bad? Asked gently. 50-50 chance. She wiped at her eyes. He might not make it through the surgery. And if he does... She broke off sobbing. Scarlett held her mother, and I'd never felt more useless. This wasn't something I could fix with money or connections or strategy. This was life and death, and all we could do was wait. Mrs. Morrison, I said quietly. Is there anything you need? Coffee? Food? I can. Just stay with her. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Stay with my daughter. She needs you. I'm not going anywhere. We waited for hours. Scarlett paced, unable to sit still. Her brothers arrived, all 5 of them looking shell-shocked. Roman pulled Scarlett into a fierce hug. He's going to be okay, Roman said. Dad's too stubborn to die. I hope you're right, Scarlett whispered. More waiting. More pacing. I got coffee that nobody drank and food that nobody ate. Elena called, offering to come, but I told her to stay home. Too many people already. Finally, a surgeon emerged, still in scrubs, looking exhausted. Morrison family. We all jumped up. Scarlett grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. How is he? Her mother asked. The surgery was successful. We cleared the blockage and repaired the damage. The surgeon smiled tiredly. He's stable. Lucky, considering the size of the attack. Relief flooded through the room. Scarlett's mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Her brothers hugged each other. And Scarlett turned to me and broke down completely. I held her while she cried, while all the fear and anger and relief poured out. Held her while her family crowded around the surgeon asking questions. Held her because it was all I could do. He's alive, she whispered against my chest. He's alive. He is. I kissed her hair. And you'll get to talk to him. Tell him everything you need to say. I don't know what to say. She pulled back, looking up at me with swollen eyes. I'm so angry with him, Dominic. But I love him. And I hate that I love him because he doesn't deserve it. Love doesn't work that way. It doesn't care about deserve. I cupped her face. You can be angry and love him at the same time. You can forgive him without forgetting what he did. It's not all or nothing. When did you get so wise? When I met you. Smiled. You're rubbing off on me. The surgeon approached us. Mrs. Ashford. Your father is asking for you. Scarlett took a shaky breath. Can my husband come? Of course. We followed the surgeon to the ICU, to a room full of beeping machines and tubes and the man who'd started all of this. Richard Morrison looked small in the hospital bed, pale and fragile in a way I'd never seen him. Scarlett, he rasped when he saw her. You came. Of course I came. She moved to his bedside, taking his hand. You scared us, Dad. I scared myself. He tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. Doctors say I need to reduce stress. Make lifestyle changes. Then do it. Her voice was firm. Because I'm not ready to lose you. Even after everything I did. His eyes filled with tears. After I sold you to save the company. Even after that. Scarlett's own tears started falling. You're my father. I'm allowed to be angry with you and still love you. I don't deserve. Stop. She squeezed his hand. Just stop. We'll deal with all of that later. Right now you need to rest and recover. Okay. He looked at me. Dominic. Take care of my girl. Always, I said. That was never in question. Good. Good. His eyes started closing. She deserves better than I gave her. Better than. He trailed off, already falling asleep from the medication. Scarlett stood there for a long moment, watching him breathe. Then she turned to me, buried her face in my chest, and let herself fall apart again. I've got you, I murmured, holding her tight. I've got you, and I'm never letting go. Scarlett. It was dawn by the time we got home. We were both exhausted. Physically, emotionally, mentally drained. But when we walked into the penthouse, when Dominic closed and locked the door behind us, when we were finally, blessedly alone. Bed, he said. Now. You need sleep. I need you, I corrected, pulling him close. I need to feel alive. To feel something other than fear. He understood immediately. His lips found mine in a kiss that was desperate and fierce and grounding all at once. We stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding clothes along the way, hands everywhere, mouths hungry. Scarlett. He breathed against my neck. You should rest. I don't want to rest. I pulled him onto the bed with me. I want you. All of you. Right now. So he gave me what I needed. Fast and rough and intense, both of us chasing the feeling of being alive, of being together, of surviving everything the world threw at us. And after, when we lay tangled in sweaty sheets, hearts still racing, he held me close and whispered the words I needed to hear. I love you. No matter what happens. No matter what storms come. I love you, Scarlett. Always. Always, I echoed, and believed it with every fiber of my being. Because we'd been through hell together in the past month. Faced down our demons. Confronted our fears. And we'd come out the other side stronger. This marriage, this crazy, impossible, formerly fake marriage, was real now. More real than anything I'd ever known. And as I drifted off to sleep in Dominic's arms, safe and warm and loved, I knew, whatever came next, we'd face it together. The storm had passed. But our story was just beginning. Dominic. I watched Scarlett sleep, memorizing the way she looked in the morning light. Peaceful. Beautiful. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Text from Amy. Saw the news about Scarlett's father. How is he? Stable. Surgery was successful. Good. I'm glad. And Dominic. Thank you. For everything. For helping me understand what really happened to Connor. For giving me closure. Thank you. For helping us with Marcus. For being brave enough to tell the truth. Pause then. Connor would have liked Scarlett. She's good for you. I looked at the woman sleeping beside me, at the ring on her finger that matched mine. She really is. Another text came through, this one from Marcus. I meant what I said. Sorry. For all of it. And Ashford. Take care of that wife of yours. Women like her don't come around often. No. And I will. I set down my phone and pulled Scarlett closer. She murmured in her sleep, burrowing into my chest, and I felt something settle in my heart. For 3 years I'd been living half a life. Going through the motions. Feeling nothing. And then Scarlett Morrison walked into my office with fire in her eyes and defiance on her lips. And everything changed. She'd made me feel again. Made me love again. Made me believe that maybe, just maybe, I deserve something good. I love you, I whispered to her sleeping form. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve you. She smiled in her sleep like she could hear me even in dreams. And I knew, no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter what obstacles we faced, we'd overcome them. 'Cause we had each other. And that was everything. The storm had passed. But the best part of our story was still to come. Chapter 8. Choosing Love. Scarlett. 3 months later, I stood in the conference room at Morrison Hotel's headquarters, looking at numbers that finally made sense. We're in the black, my father's CFO announced, barely concealing his excitement. For the first time in 2 years, Morrison Hotels is profitable again. Around the table, the board members erupted in applause. My father, recovered from his heart attack and looking healthier than he had in years, smiled with genuine pride. This is largely thanks to Scarlett, he said, gesturing to me. Her restructuring plan and partnership negotiations have saved this company. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. After my father's heart attack, I'd thrown myself into actually running Morrison Hotels instead of just being its figurehead. Dominic had encouraged me, helped me see that I was more than capable of leading the family business. I had help, I said, meeting my father's eyes. From everyone at this table. This was a team effort. But as the meeting adjourned and people filed out congratulating me, my father caught my arm. "Can we talk?" he asked. Privately. We went to his office, newly redecorated with healthier habits in mind, no more alcohol-stained papers or smoke-filled air. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "A real one. Not the half-hearted attempt I made in the hospital. Dad. No. Let me say this." He took a breath. "When your mother died, I fell apart. Instead of being there for you, instead of being the father you deserved, I buried myself in work, in alcohol, in bad decisions. And when the company started failing, instead of facing it like a man, I sold you to save myself." Tears burned behind my eyes. "Yes, you did. I told myself it was for the family legacy, for your mother's dream. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was scared and desperate, and I used you." He met my eyes, his own red-rimmed. "I'm sorry, Scarlett, for all of it. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know, I regret it. Every single day." I was quiet for a moment, letting his words settle. "You hurt me. Deeply. When you made that deal with Dominic, you treated me like property instead of your daughter." "I know. But..." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Something Mom used to say keeps coming back to me. She said that sometimes the worst things lead to the best things. That life has a way of turning our mistakes into miracles. Your mother was a wise woman. She was." I smiled through my tears. "And she was right. Because if you hadn't made that deal, I never would have met Dominic. I never would have fallen in love with him. I never would have discovered that I'm stronger than I thought I was." "So you're saying..." "I'm saying I forgive you, Dad." I reached across the desk, took his hand. "Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger is exhausting. And because you're my father and I love you, even when you make terrible decisions." He broke down then, tears streaming down his face. "I don't deserve..." "Stop." I squeezed his hand. "You're working on being better. You're taking care of your health. You're actually being present. That's all I can ask. Dominic is good for you," he said after a moment. "I see the way he looks at you. Like you're the center of his universe. He is good for me." Smiled. "Even though our marriage started as a business transaction. It's not a transaction anymore. It wasn't a question. No. It's very, very real." "Good." He stood, walked around the desk and pulled me into a hug. "That's all I want for you, Scarlett. To be happy. To be loved. To have everything I couldn't give you after your mother died. You're giving it to me now," I said into his shoulder. "By being here. By trying. That's enough." Dominic. The trust fund review was scheduled for the following week. Margaret and the other trustees would interview both Scarlett and me, verify that our marriage was legitimate, and then, hopefully, release Elena's medical funds permanently. "You're nervous," Elena observed, watching me pace in my office. "Stop it. You're making me dizzy." "I'm not nervous. You're a terrible liar." She smiled from her spot on my couch, looking healthy and vibrant. The treatments were working, her prognosis better than anyone had hoped. "You're worried they'll figure out the marriage started as an arrangement." "It did start as an arrangement. But it's not anymore." She stood cross to me. "Dom, anyone who spends 5 minutes with you and Scarlett can see you're madly in love. The trustees aren't blind. Grandfather was paranoid. He put clauses in that will specifically to catch people trying to game the system. You're not gaming the system. You fell in love. That's allowed. She poked my chest. Stop catastrophizing. It's going to be fine. How are you so calm about this? Because I trust you. And I trust Scarlett. She smiled. Besides, even if the trustees freeze the fund again, which they won't, I'll be okay. The treatments are working. I'm in remission. We won the lottery, Dom. You won the lottery, I corrected, pulling her into a hug. You fought and survived. I just wrote checks. You did more than that. She pulled back, looking up at me seriously. You found love again. After Victoria, I thought you'd spend the rest of your life alone. But Scarlett, she brought you back to life. She did. I thought about my wife, currently in a meeting at Morrison Hotels, probably charming the hell out of everyone. She's remarkable. She is. So stop worrying about the review and go surprise her at work. Take her to lunch. Be a sickeningly adorable couple. Elena pushed me toward the door. Go. Before I kick you out. You're bossy. I learned from the best. He grinned. Now go woo your wife. Scarlett. I was reviewing contracts when Dominic appeared in my office doorway holding flowers and looking almost shy. Hi, he said. Hi. I set down my pen, smiling. What are you doing here? Taking my wife to lunch. He crossed to my desk, set down the bouquet. Peonies, always peonies now. If she'll have me. She's very busy. I gestured to the paperwork covering every surface. Important businesswoman, you know. I do know. It's very intimidating. He leaned against my desk, eyes warm. But I was hoping she might take pity on her poor, love-struck husband and spare him an hour. Love-struck. I stood, moving into his space. That's a strong word. It's an accurate word. He cupped my face, kissed me softly. I love you, Scarlett Ashford. Have I mentioned that today? Once or twice. I smiled against his lips. But I never get tired of hearing it. Good. Because I plan to say it approximately 1,000 more times before dinner. Only 1,000. You're slacking. We had lunch at a small Italian place near the hotel, tucked into a corner booth, feeding each other bites of pasta and acting exactly like Elena had suggested. Sickeningly adorable. The trust fund review is next week, Dominic said as we shared tiramisu. Are you ready? Are you? Countered. Nervous. But Elena says I'm catastrophizing. Elena's usually right. I squeezed his hand. We'll be fine, Dominic. We love each other. That's not something we can fake. I know. But what if they ask how we met? About the contract. Then we tell the truth. Shrugged. We had an arranged marriage that turned real. It happens. Does it? He looked skeptical. It happened to us. I leaned across the table, kissed him. And that's all that matters. My phone buzzed. Meh. Emergency. Need you. Coffee shop. I showed Dominic the text, concern flooding through me. I have to go. Maya never does emergency texts. I'll come with you. We found Maya at our usual coffee shop, mascara running, eyes red from crying. She looked up when we arrived and burst into fresh tears. What happened? I slid into the booth beside her, pulling her into a hug. Maya talked to me. Jason proposed, she sobbed. And blinked. That's good, right? You love Jason. I do love him. But she hiccuped. He wants me to sign a prenup. A really aggressive prenup. His lawyer drew it up and it's awful, Scarlett. Basically says if we divorce for any reason I get nothing. Not even what I bring into the marriage. That's ridiculous, Dominic said, his voice hard. What kind of prenup? The kind written by someone who doesn't trust his fiancée. Maya wiped at her eyes. And the worst part. I thought we had something real. Thought he loved me. But this prenup makes me feel like he's already planning our divorce. I looked at Dominic, remembering our own prenup. The contract that had started all of this. Talk to him, I said to Maya. Tell him how you feel. A prenup should protect both people, not just one. What if he won't negotiate? Then you know where his priorities are. I squeezed her hand. You deserve someone who sees you as a partner, not a potential liability. Like you and Dominic, she said, managing a watery smile. You two give me hope that real love exists. I felt Dominic's hand find mine under the table. It does exist, but it takes work, and trust, and choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, Dominic added. Maya, if Jason loves you, really loves you, he'll understand your concerns. He'll compromise. And if he doesn't, then I walk away, Maya finished. I know. I wanted it to be easy. Like it looks with you too. It's not easy, I admitted. We fight. We disagree. We drive each other crazy sometimes. But we also love each other enough to work through it. After we left Maya, with promises to be there for her no matter what happened with Jason, Dominic and I walked through Hyde Park, hand in hand. Our prenup, I said finally. Do you ever think about it? Every day. He stopped walking, turned to face me. Scarlett, I want to tear it up. What? The prenup. The contract. All of it. He took both my hands. This isn't a business arrangement anymore. This is our marriage. Our life. And I don't want some legal document dictating what happens if we... He paused. If we don't make it. We're going to make it, I said firmly. I know. But still. I want to tear it up. Start fresh. Build something that's not based on terms and conditions but on trust and love. He searched my face. What do you think? I smiled. I think we should keep it. What? Why? Because it reminds us where we started. Because it's proof that something that began as a transaction can become something real. I touched his face. That contract brought us together, Dominic. I don't want to forget that. You're remarkable. He kissed me right there in the middle of Hyde Park with people walking by. Have I told you that? Once or twice. I grinned. But I never get tired of hearing it. Dominic. The trust fund review was exactly as invasive as I'd feared. Margaret and 2 other trustees sat across from us in the conference room at my office, asking questions designed to catch us in lies. How did you meet? Margaret asked, pen poised over her notepad. At my father's office, Scarlett answered smoothly. Dominic was there to discuss a business arrangement. And you fell in love immediately. No. I took Scarlett's hand. We didn't. We argued, actually. Scarlett thought I was arrogant. I thought she was infuriating. But somewhere between the arguing and the business discussions, Scarlett continued, we realized we had something. A connection neither of us expected. And the marriage. Another trustee, a man named Robert, leaned forward. It happened very quickly. When you know, Scarlett said simply. Why wait? Indeed. Margaret made notes. Mr. Ashford, your grandfather's will specifically states that the marriage must be genuine, not one of convenience. Can you explain why you married so quickly after meeting? This was it. The question designed to trap us. Because I was tired of being alone, I said honestly. I spent 3 years after my broken engagement convinced I'd never find someone I could trust. Someone who saw past the money and the power to the person underneath. And then I met Scarlett and I looked at my wife. She challenged me. Made me want to be better. Made me believe I deserved something real. And you believe this marriage is real? Margaret asked. More real than anything I've ever experienced. I squeezed Scarlett's hand. I love my wife. Completely. And if that's not genuine enough for you, it's enough. Margaret smiled, actually smiled. Mr. Ashford, we've reviewed your case extensively. We've observed you and your wife at public events. We've spoken to people who know you both. And we've concluded that your marriage, regardless of how it started, is legitimate. Relief flooded through me. So the trust fund will be released permanently. Elena's medical expenses will be covered indefinitely. She closed her notebook. Your grandfather wanted to ensure you were settled, Mr. Ashford. That you had found stability and love. It's clear you have. After the trustees left, Scarlett and I sat alone in the conference room, processing what had just happened. We did it, she said softly. We did it. I pulled her into my lap. Elena's taken care of. The arrangement is over. We're free. Free, she repeated, and something in her voice made me look at her sharply. What? The contract. Stipulated 1 year. We've been married for 4 months. She played with my tie, not meeting my eyes. Technically, you could end this now. Elena's fund is secure. You have what you needed. My heart stopped. Scarlett. I'm not saying I want you to. She looked up quickly. I'm just saying you have the option. If this isn't what you want. If you feel trapped. Kissed her. Cut off her words with my mouth on hers, pouring everything I felt into that kiss. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I cupped her face. Listen to me very carefully, I said. I don't want out. I don't feel trapped. I don't want this to end in 8 months or 8 years or ever. You are my wife, my partner, my best friend. And I choose you. Every day I choose you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I choose you too. Good. I kissed her again, softer this time. So let's stop talking about contracts and arrangements and start talking about our future. A real future. What kind of future? The kind where we wake up together every morning. The kind where we build Morrison Ashford hotels into something both our families can be proud of. The kind where, I paused. The kind where we have kids someday. If you want that. Kids. Her eyes went wide. Not now. We're still figuring this out. But someday. Smiled. I think you'd be an incredible mother. I think you'd be an incredible father. He kissed me. Yes, someday. I want that. Then let's make it happen. I stood, pulling her with me. Let's build a life that's ours. Not what our parents wanted. Not what society expects. Just ours. I like the sound of that. She laced her fingers through mine. Where do we start? Right here. I kissed her forehead. Right now. By choosing love over everything else. Scarlett. That night we threw a dinner party. Elena was there, glowing with health and happiness. My father and mother actually holding hands like they used to when I was a child. My brothers, all 5 of them, charming and overprotective as always. Maya and Jason, who'd worked out their prenup issues and looked disgustingly happy. Even Amy Mitchell came, bringing her mother Patricia, who thanked us tearfully for helping her find peace about Connor's death. A toast, Dominic said, standing at the head of the table with a wine glass raised. To family. The one you're born with and the one you choose. To second chances and new beginnings. And to my wife. He looked at me, eyes warm. Who taught me that love is worth the risk? To Scarlett. Everyone echoed, glasses clinking. And to Dominic, I added, standing beside him. Who taught me that sometimes the worst deals lead to the best outcomes. Who turned a business arrangement into something beautiful. Who chose to love me even when he was terrified of it. To Dominic. As dinner progressed, laughter and stories and the chaos of people who loved each other, I looked around the table and felt overwhelming gratitude. 4 months ago, I'd walked into a conference room and sold myself to save my family's company. I'd agreed to marry a stranger. I thought I was sacrificing everything. Instead, I'd found everything. Happy. Dominic murmured in my ear as dessert was served. So happy. I leaned into him. You. Happier than I ever thought possible. He kissed my temple. Thank you. For what? For taking a chance on me. For seeing past the ice to the man underneath. For loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. Thank you for the same. I turned to kiss him properly, not caring that we had an audience. I love you, Dominic Ashford. I love you, Scarlett Ashford. He rested his forehead against mine. Always and forever. Always and forever, I echoed. And as our family and friends celebrated around us, as wine flowed and laughter rang out, as I sat beside the man I'd married out of necessity and fallen in love with by choice, I knew. This was just the beginning. We'd faced down our demons, confronted our pasts, chosen each other despite every reason not to. And now we got to build a future. Together. A future filled with love and laughter and occasional chaos. A future where business arrangements turned into real marriages. Where broken people healed each other. Where duty became desire and obligation became devotion. A future that was entirely, beautifully ours. Dominic. Later that night, after everyone had left and the penthouse was quiet again, I found Scarlett on the balcony, looking out over London. "Penny, for your thoughts?" I asked, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "Just thinking about how much has changed." She leaned back against me. "For months ago, I was terrified of you. Hated you, even. The feeling was mutual. And now," she turned in my arms, "now I can't imagine my life without you." "Good. Because you're stuck with me." I kissed her softly. "For better or worse. In sickness and health. In mild felonies and hostile takeovers." She laughed. "We really need to add that to the traditional vows. We should write our own vows. Real ones. Not the ones we said at the wedding. We said real vows at the wedding. We said vows we thought we should say." I pulled her closer. "I want to say vows that are just for us. That capture what we really feel." "Okay." She smiled up at me. "You first." I thought for a moment, choosing my words carefully. "Scarlett Ashford, I vow to choose you. Every day in every way. I vow to fight with you and for you. To push you when you need pushing and hold you when you need holding. I vow to be your partner in all things. Business and pleasure, joy and sorrow, chaos and peace. I vow to never take you for granted. To remember that what we have is precious and rare and worth protecting. And I vow to love you. Messily, imperfectly, completely, for the rest of my life." She was crying now, tears streaming down her beautiful face. "How am I supposed to follow that?" "Just speak from your heart." "Okay." She took a breath. "Dominic Ashford, I vow to see you. Not the armor you wear or the walls you build, but the man underneath. I vow to challenge you when you need challenging and support you when you need supporting. I vow to be your safe place. The person you can be vulnerable with without fear of judgment. I vow to choose you even when choosing you is hard. Even when it scares me. Because you're worth the fear. And I vow to love you. Fiercely, stubbornly, eternally. For all the days of my life." "That," I said, my own eyes wet now, "was perfect." Yeah. I kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. "We're pretty good at this." "At what?" "Marriage. Love. Us." I swept her into my arms, carrying her toward our bedroom. "I think we should celebrate." "Oh." She wrapped her arms around my neck. "What did you have in mind?" "Reminding my wife exactly how much I love her." I kicked open the bedroom door. In explicit detail. Multiple times. "Mr. Ashford." She pretended to be scandalized. "How forward of you. You love it." "I really do." She pulled me down for a kiss as I laid her on our bed. The bed we shared every night now. No more separate rooms, no more distance. "Show me. Show me how much you love me." So I did. I showed her with my hands and mouth and body. Showed her until we were both breathless and satisfied and tangled together in sheets that smelled like us. And as she fell asleep in my arms, as I held her close and listened to her breathe, I made a silent promise. I would spend the rest of my life choosing her, loving her, being worthy of her. Because Scarlett Ashford, formerly Morrison, had saved me. She'd taken a broken, bitter man and shown him that love was still possible. That healing was possible. That happy endings were real. And I would spend forever proving that she'd made the right choice. In choosing me. In choosing us. In choosing love. Always and forever. Epilogue. 6 months later. Scarlett. I woke up to an empty bed and the smell of coffee. For a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. An old instinct from the early days when Dominic would retreat to his office, building walls I'd have to climb all over again. But then I heard him, humming off-key in the kitchen, and I smiled. My husband couldn't carry a tune to save his life. I grabbed his shirt from the floor. We'd been in a hurry last night, celebrating the merger of Morrison Hotels and Ashford Properties, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. Dominic stood at the stove, shirtless in pajama pants, flipping pancakes. The morning sun caught his dark hair, and I took a moment just to appreciate him. The man who'd been a cold stranger a year ago was now making me breakfast and humming what might have been a Beatles song. "You're staring," he said without turning around. "You're half naked in our kitchen. What do you expect?" Fair point. He glanced over his shoulder, eyes warming when he saw me. "Morning, Mrs. Ashford. Sleep well. Like the dead. Someone exhausted me last night. Someone should apologize." But he didn't look sorry at all as he plated pancakes and brought them to the counter. "Eat. You need your strength." "Why?" "Planning to exhaust me again." "Always." He kissed me as I sat down. "But also, we have the Morrison Ashford grand opening today. Your father's already called twice." Groaned. "What time is it?" 7. "We have 3 hours before we need to leave." He poured coffee, added cream and sugar exactly how I liked it. Plenty of time. We ate in comfortable silence, the kind that came from really knowing someone. From sharing a life, not just a house. From choosing each other every single day. "I have something to tell you," I said, setting down my fork. His eyes sharpened. "Good something or bad something?" "I don't know yet." I took his hand. "I'm late." "Late for what?" "Dominic." I waited for it to click. Took 3 seconds. Then his eyes went wide. You think you might be pregnant?" "Maybe." "I took a test this morning while you were humming your way through breakfast." I pulled the test from the pocket of his shirt, set it on the counter between us. 2 pink lines. Dominic stared at it like it was a bomb. Then at me. Then back at the test. "We're having a baby," he said, voice barely a whisper. "We're having a baby." I searched his face for his reaction. "I know we said someday, but..." He kissed me. Cut off my words with his mouth on mine. His hands cupping my face. His whole body shaking slightly. "We're having a baby," he repeated when we finally broke apart. "Holy shit. We're having a baby. You're happy." Relief flooded through me. "Happy." He laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "Scarlett, I'm terrified and ecstatic and completely overwhelmed." He rested his forehead against mine. "We're having a baby. You keep saying that. Because I can't believe it." He pulled back, eyes bright with tears he wasn't bothering to hide. "A year ago, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. And now I'm married to the most incredible woman I've ever met, and we're having a baby. So you're happy." "So happy." He kissed me again, soft and tender. "Thank you. I didn't do it alone." "True." His hand moved to my stomach, still flat but not for long. "We made this together. We made a lot of things together." I covered his hand with mine. "A marriage. Business. Life. And now, a family." He smiled, genuine and unguarded and beautiful. "We're making a family. Dominic." The Morrison Ashford grand opening was a media circus. Photographers everywhere, journalists asking questions, investors and celebrities and London's elite all gathered to celebrate the merger that had taken a year to finalize. But I only had eyes for Scarlett. She stood at the center of it all in a green dress that matched her eyes, fielding questions with grace and humor, charming everyone she spoke to. "My wife. My partner. The mother of my child." "You're staring again," Elena said, appearing at my elbow. "It's getting embarrassing. I'm allowed to stare at my wife." "True. But you're doing that thing where you look like you want to drag her into a closet and..." "Elena." But I was laughing. "Inappropriate. You love it." She sipped her champagne. "Oh, big news. Are you going to tell me, or do I have to guess?" I looked at her sharply. "How did you?" "Please. You've been hovering around Scarlett all morning like she's made of glass. And she keeps touching her stomach when she thinks no one's looking. Lena smiled. I'm going to be an aunt, aren't I? We haven't told anyone yet. I'm not anyone. I'm your sister. She hugged me fiercely. Congratulations, Dom. I'm so happy for you both. Thank you. I hugged her back. For everything. For pushing me to give love another chance. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's what family does. She pulled back, eyes bright. Now go rescue your wife. That journalist from the Times has been trying to corner her for 20 minutes. I made my way through the crowd to Scarlett's side, sliding my arm around her waist. The journalist, a shark named Phillips, smiled predatorily. Mr. Ashford. Perfect timing. I was just asking your wife about the rumors of trouble during your engagement. What rumors? I kept my voice pleasant. That the marriage was arranged. A business deal rather than a love match. Phillips's eyes gleamed. Care to comment? Scarlett and I looked at each other. A year ago, this question would have sent panic through both of us. No. It's true, Scarlett said simply. Phillips's eyes widened. It is. We had an arranged marriage. She leaned into me, smiling. My father and Dominic worked out a deal. I agreed to marry him to save my family's company. And you're admitting this publicly. Phillips looked like Christmas had come early. Why not? I pulled Scarlett closer. Yes, our marriage was arranged. Yes, it started as a business transaction. But what happened after, what we built together, that's real. That's love. We fell in love the old-fashioned way, Scarlett added. By spending time together. By learning to trust each other. By choosing each other every single day. So you're saying arranged marriages can work? Phillips was scribbling furiously. I'm saying our marriage works. I kissed Scarlett's temple. And the how doesn't matter as much as the why. We stayed married because we love each other. Everything else is just details. Phillips tried to ask more questions, but we excused ourselves, finding a quiet corner away from the crowd. That was brave, I said. Telling the truth. I'm tired of hiding. She took my hand. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We turned something transactional into something beautiful. That's a good story. It's a great story. I pulled her close, not caring who saw. The best story. Dominic Ashford, are you getting sentimental on me? Completely. I kissed her right there in front of everyone. You make me sentimental. And soft. And ridiculously happy. Good. She smiled against my lips. Because you make me the same way. Scarlett. That evening, we gathered everyone at the penthouse for a private celebration. My parents. My brothers. Lena. Maya and Jason, now engaged with a much fairer prenup. Amy Mitchell, who'd become a genuine friend over the past months. Even James, Dominic's driver, who'd been with us through everything. We have an announcement, Dominic said once everyone had champagne. Well, everyone except me. I had sparkling cider. Actually, 2 announcements. The first, I said, standing beside him, is that Morrison Ashford Hotels is officially operational. The merger is complete. And we're projecting record profits for the next quarter. Everyone cheered. The second announcement. Dominic paused, looking at me with so much love it took my breath away. We're having a baby. Chaos erupted. My mother burst into tears. My father looked stunned but happy. Roman picked me up and spun me around until Dominic made him put me down. Elena screamed with joy. Maya was crying and laughing simultaneously. A baby, my mother kept saying. I'm going to be a grandmother. We just found out this morning, I explained once everyone calmed down slightly. So we're still processing. How far along? Maya asked. 6 weeks, maybe. I have a doctor's appointment next week to confirm. This is the best news, Elena said, hugging both of us. That baby is going to be so loved. So spoiled, Roman added. 5 uncles are going to ruin this kid. Don't forget the aunt, Elena protested. I have dibs on favorite aunt. As the celebration continued around us, Dominic pulled me aside onto the balcony. Overwhelming, he asked. A little. I leaned against the railing, looking out at London. A year ago, I stood in my father's office and agreed to marry a stranger. I thought I was sacrificing everything. And now I have everything. I turned to face him. A husband I love. Family that's healing. A business I'm proud of. And a baby on the way. I touched his face. How did we get so lucky? We weren't lucky. He covered my hand with his. We worked for this. We fought for it. We chose it. We chose each other, I agreed. Best choice I ever made. He kissed me softly. And I'd make it again. Every time. In every lifetime. Every lifetime, I echoed. That's a long time. Not nearly long enough. He pulled me close, one hand moving to my stomach. We're going to be parents. Terrifying, right? The most terrifying thing I've ever done. He smiled. But if I can survive falling in love with you, I can survive anything. You're such a romantic. Only for you. He kissed me again, deeper this time. Always for you. Through the glass doors, I could see our family celebrating. Laughing. Together. My father was talking to Dominic's sister, probably already planning to spoil his grandchild. My brothers were arguing about baby names. My mother was crying happy tears. This was my life now. Messy and loud and full of love. So different from the sterile, lonely existence I'd imagined a year ago. No regrets? Dominic asked softly. Not a single one. I looked up at him, at the man who'd started as my purchased husband and become my everything. You. Only that I didn't find you sooner. He rested his forehead against mine. But we have now. We have the future. We have everything. Everything, I agreed. And as we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the city lights twinkling below us and our family celebrating inside, I knew he was right. We had everything. We'd started with a contract, a transaction, a business deal. But we'd built something so much more. We'd built a marriage. Partnership. A love that had survived every test. We'd been bound by duty. But we'd been broken and remade by desire. And now we were simply us. Dominic and Scarlett Ashford. Husband and wife. Partners in business and in life. Soon to be parents. And most importantly, two people who'd chosen love over fear, trust over doubt, each other over everything else. I love you, I whispered. I love you, he whispered back. And in that moment, standing on our balcony overlooking the city where we'd fought and fallen and found each other, I knew. This was just the beginning. Our story had started with a proposition, but it would end with a promise. To choose each other. Every day. For the rest of our lives. Forever. Dominic. 1 year later, I stood in the hospital delivery room, holding my wife's hand as she brought our daughter into the world. One more push, the doctor encouraged. You're almost there, Scarlett. I hate you, Scarlett panted, squeezing my hand hard enough to break bones. This is all your fault. I know. I kissed her forehead. I'm sorry. You're amazing. You're doing so well. Don't patronize me or I swear to God, she broke off with a scream. And then a different sound. Baby crying. It's a girl, the doctor announced, holding up our daughter. A beautiful, healthy girl. Scarlett collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. Is she okay? Is she? She's perfect. The nurse brought our daughter over, placed her on Scarlett's chest. Absolutely perfect. I stared at them, my wife and my daughter, and felt something shift in my chest. Complete and utter love. Overwhelming and all-consuming. Hi, baby girl, Scarlett whispered, touching our daughter's tiny hand. We've been waiting for you. Our daughter opened her eyes, gray like mine, and looked at her mother like she already knew she was the most important person in the world. She's beautiful, I said, voice rough. Like her mother. She has your eyes. Scarlett looked up at me, radiant despite her exhaustion. Do you want to hold her? I delivered multi-million-pound deals without breaking a sweat. I'd faced down hostile takeovers and corporate sharks. But the idea of holding something so small, so precious. What if I drop her? You won't drop her. The nurse helped me, guiding my arms into position. Support her head. Just like that. Perfect. And suddenly I was holding my daughter. She was so small, so warm, so real. Hello, Charlotte, I whispered. We'd named her after Scarlett's mother. I'm your dad. And I promise, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know you're loved, that you're safe, that you can be anything you want to be. Charlotte yawned, completely unimpressed by my speech. Scarlett laughed, tired but happy. I think she's already got you wrapped around her finger. Completely. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She's perfect, Scarlett. You made a perfect human. We made a perfect human. She reached up, touched my face. Together. Together. That word had become everything to us. Together we'd built a marriage from a business deal. Together we'd overcome our pasts and our fears. Together we'd created a life that was messy and beautiful and real. And now, together, we'd brought new life into the world. Thank you, I said, carefully sitting on the edge of Scarlett's bed, our daughter still in my arms. For this. For her. For everything. Thank you, she countered. For taking a chance on us. For choosing love even when it terrified you. Best decision I ever made. I kissed her softly, careful not to disturb Charlotte. Marrying you. Even though I was a business transaction. Especially because you were a business transaction. Smiled. You taught me that sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. That love doesn't always look the way we think it should. That arranged marriages can become real ones. That broken people can heal each other.